the everyday Hogwarts player. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 476 Magic Drama Academy. In the crowd, Harry shrank his neck, gritted his teeth, and walked into Ollivander's one-shop. He didn't know where Ron got the shamelessness from. He had originally just wanted to wait until Filch and the others were gone before wandering around. But Ron walked in directly out of curiosity. As he opened the door, 3 pairs of eyes were instantly cast on him. Here comes another one. Harry Potter, are you here to ask stupid questions too? The muscles on Filch's face twitched slightly, revealing an ugly smile. What a stupid question. My questions are all very important. Ron replied before Harry could reply. Are you a squib too? Then Ron looked at the dark-skinned lady with light bulb eyes. To be precise, it was some time ago, but now, Miss Campbell smiled and showed the wand in her hand. The dark-skinned lady was very talkative, and she asked Ron familiarly about Filch's work at Hogwarts. Harry, who had expected to be scolded, stared blankly at everything in front of him. He finally understood why Filch, despite his bad temper, couldn't get rid of Miss Campbell because she is a shameless person like Ron. Is your name Wayne Campbell? Are both your parents wizards? Then you are much better than Filch. After all, he is also a squib from the royal family. He probably got into Hogwarts thanks to his family connections. I think you. Ron rarely praised Miss Campbell. This is indeed a compliment, at least that's what Ron himself thinks. On the other hand, he had a conflicted look on his face, mixed with gratitude and resentment. I'm still here, Ron Weasley. You're here. Eyes as if waking up from a dream. Harry was speechless. Ron actually forgot about Filch just now, even though Filch was right next to him. I almost forgot. I'm going to school with Filch after I bought my wand. Harry and Ron widened their eyes when they heard this. What? Magic school? Hogwarts? Harry asked 3 times. I don't think all those squibs turned wizards are going to school at Hogwarts. Take advantage of the summer vacation of other normal students. In Harry's mind, he could already see Filch in his inappropriate student uniform, mixing pots under Snape's scolding. This isn't Hogwarts. Filch seemed hurt by Harry's words. Harry, you are so rude. Ron said from the side. Me? Impolite. Harry was speechless. Especially when it was Ron who said it. We go to the School of Magic and Drama. A school specifically for adult wild wizards. Now we also accept wizards like us who are transformed from squibs. Ms. Campbell said with a smile. She had a dimple at the corner of her mouth, which made her look particularly friendly. Magic and drama school. It can't be a quack magic introductory correspondence course like the quick chanting class, Ron questioned. In fact, he couldn't help but question it because in the past, there were indeed many fake schools that targeted doubts to cheat money. What's worse is that their scams are actually very careless. It's so clear that anyone with a wizard friend can see through it. This largely screens out a group of squibs who are rich, eager for magic, but have no wizard friends. They are easily deceived and have no channels to protect their rights after being deceived to quickly spell, but the case is a housewife who is ridiculed for her poor potion. The name is also very careless, the obnoxious Lady of Mount Top. The School of Magic and Drama is a great school that is not restricted by region and accepts wizards from all countries. It is also a professional magic school recognized by the International Confederation of Wizards. Filch spoke this time. He acted very proudly and pulled his robe straight, revealing a silver badge with a gold border. Harry understood immediately. Ron might not know, but Harry knew that this was probably similar to vocational and technical school in the Muggle world. Why do you need to add a major? Ron looked at Miss Campbell. Although they had just met, he trusted Miss Campbell's words more because they got along well. Because it does not foster magical knowledge. At least not primarily. It cultivates the technology needed in factories in the wizarding world. Campbell explained. In our country, for example, Charlie's Candy Factory, which makes chocolate frogs, William Pharmaceuticals, which has recently become famous and has occupied the low-end magic potion market, and the Nimbus Racing Broom Company all have cooperation with the Academy of Magical Drama, Filch emphasized. Ron wanted to ask something else, but the sound of clicking behind them interrupted it all. It was Ollivander who showed up to write his slide. And just like that, Filch and Miss Campbell left the one shop. Filch acted very reserved and seemed reluctant to meet Ollivander again. Before leaving, Miss Campbell signaled Ron to owl. "Hello, Harry Potter, and Mr. Ron Weasley." Ollivander suddenly appeared behind Harry and Ron. "Phoenix feather, 11 inches long. I read in the newspaper that you did a great feat with my product, and I am right, you will achieve great things." Ollivander did not continue. Perhaps because Ron was there, he didn't even mention the Holly Wand's brother wand. He turned to look at Ron. 14 inches, Willow. Unicorn hair wands are different from ordinary willow wands. They don't make a whirring sound when you wave them. Harry breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid to hear the same evaluation of his mother's wand from Ollivander's mouth. 10¼ inches long, made of willow, swishes when waved, and is a good wand for magic. If so, he would feel something was wrong. "Why don't you tell me my name? I've done a lot of great things recently." "Smoke bottle," Ron shouted dissatisfiedly. Chapter 477 Similar Flowers. Some people brag for so long that even they start to believe their own lies. Ron is that kind of person. The story of the invisible beast in Ravenclaw Tower that he mentioned actually came from the Ravenclaw Phoenix, his friend, an invisible beast. It had been coveted by senior poachers. Ron, with the help of him and Draco, protected their story. This story has been passed on by word of mouth, and other students have long since filled in the gaps and told it as if it were true. No, even Ollivander mistakenly believed it was true. Ron's dissatisfaction. He has just regretted his misfortune. If he had known that the existence of phoenixes in Ravenclaw was not just a rumor, with his relationship with Dumbledore, he would have been able to find a new source of supply long ago. Although Fawkes is also a phoenix, it would be too monotonous to always use a phoenix feather as the core of the wand. Wait, that bastard Dumbledore couldn't have done this on purpose. So that I can keep selling Fawkes' feathers. It is right to think so. After all, the funding for the Order of the Phoenix actually comes from Fawkes' feathers. This is the true meaning of the name of the Order of the Phoenix. "Sir, have you not made the Phoenix wand for a long time?" Harry ignored Ron. Instead, he continued to ask what Ollivander had said. "You know, his wand is also made of phoenix feathers," affirmed. I woke up from my thoughts temporarily. "Yes, you may not know that the phoenix feathers of the phoenix wands I have made over the years all come from Fawkes, the phoenix of Dumbledore, but perhaps that's why only 2 phoenix wands made from Fawkes feathers were sold. The other phoenix wands you know of that have been sold are all inventory. They are all products made by my ancestors. These feathers were carefully collected by my ancestors from areas where phoenixes are common. But due to the expansion of the Muggles, and the fact that the phoenix's habitat would move to another place once it was discovered, the supply of phoenix feathers was lost in my father's generation. Fawkes showed up, and not long ago, I almost got a new source of supply, but Ollivander seemed to have been hit on a sore spot and began to talk incessantly. "So, when I bought wands before, I tried Harry's brother wand," said Ron, looking at the rows of boxes of wands on the shelf. "No, the only 2 wands that can be called brothers are Harry's and the other one that was sold. Although the other phoenix wands are also made from Fawkes' tail feathers, they are not from the same batch." Ollivander shook his head. "Same batch?" Harry asked curiously. "You all know that the phoenix is an immortal life form that can be reborn after a period of time. Every nirvana is a change for phoenix. Correspondingly, the feathers of the same phoenix in different periods of nirvana are also obviously different. 2 feathers obviously belong to the phoenix, and they are not from the same batches," he said. "They're really different." The moment Harry saw the feathers, he intuitively felt that they did not come from the same one. But according to Ollivander, they actually come from the same phoenix. It's just that the batches are different. It's amazing. Perhaps this is the secret of how phoenix can keep the same mentality and live forever. What emerges in nirvana is actually their children, not themselves. Are those memories just inherited from the previous generation? Ollivander put away the feather and said to himself, "Maybe so. You could ask Dumbledore. He should be the wizard in the magical world who knows the phoenix best." Harry suggested. "Why did you put it away so quickly?" "I don't see any difference. The drawer so quickly." "Haha, that's why I didn't say great when you bought your wand, Mr. Weasley." Finally understood why Ollivander was so quick to buy feathers. It turned out that Ollivander had grown tired of using the same phoenix feathers to make wands, and the wands were not selling. The magic world is indeed full of talented people. Ryan couldn't help but sigh. In his eyes, Ollivander, who was mediocre except for making wands, almost said that he had the essence of Phoenix's immortality. But Harry was wrong. He was the wizard who knew the phoenix best in the magical world. Unlike Harry's bizarrely mutated phoenix incarnation, Ryan combined his own power, which would never fade as long as he possessed it, with the phoenix incarnation and transformed into a true phoenix. And gained eternal life like the phoenix. The phoenix's immortality comes from giving birth to one different selves after another. Every time one enters nirvana, the soul will undergo subtle changes, making it appear to heaven and earth as a new life turned. In fact, it is equivalent to an immortal person using the household registration of his descendants to survive in the information world. Ryan's immortality is more direct. He directly erased his household registration and even his social information. He is like a non-existent person. But at the same time he can create new social information that seems to be well-founded to others, the same name and appearance, but have nothing to do with each other. They are just similar flowers, born one after another in this world. Chapter 478, Phoenix Incarnation Plus Version. The scorching sun is burning the earth. But in the castles of Nottingham Forest, there are people who do not hide in the cool castles or under the shade of trees. Instead, they were placed in the middle of a stove that was only used in winter. What's even more surprising is that there are two such people, and they are both women. There were 8 stoves, each with red feathers burning and crackling. The 2 women were one tall and one short, one fat and one thin, but the only thing they had in common was that they both had skin as white as snow and never sweated a drop. It was as if they were in a cool ice storage, or in an air-conditioned room in the Muggle world. Better to practice like this. This was a handsome young man who looked like he walked out of a Greek sculpture or an ink painting. He was currently sitting cross-legged above the 2 of them, occasionally inhaling the smoke from the burning stove into his body. It was like he was smoking a cigarette made by the 2 girls below him. Little devil. I just managed to calm down. We won't waste anything. Just practice the Phoenix transformation right now. Your words increase your proficiency in Phoenix incarnation. Kate, who was the most restless, stood up unhappily. I have paid no attention to what Ryan said. But Penelope was different. She paid attention to what was meant by the same batch. Fox, but they are from different batches, perhaps. It will have an impact on your entry into the Phoenix incarnation. Ryan waved his hand, and the 8 silver shining furnaces around the 2 women went out. The feathers that were not completely burned turned into a ruby-like liquid and sank into Ryan's body with flames. Batch said Ryan naturally knew. But he believes that there is no need to pay attention to these when practicing. What's more, the fluids in Kate and Penelope's bodies were injected by him. With the help of this human-shaped phoenix, the Phoenix incarnation should be able to get started quickly. But he forgot that what he taught Kate and the others was the Phoenix incarnation that he had improved many times. When practicing, you don't even have to recite the long, bird-like poems that praise and describe the Phoenix. After entering the door, you will also possess the magical power of the Phoenix and can transform into a real Phoenix for a short period of time. Although this new version of the Phoenix incarnation cannot be used to gain immortality, if the wizard who learns it is powerful, he may be able to find a way to prolong his life. It is also because of this that Kate and Penelope, who have already reached an absurdly high level of magical attainments, are unable to quickly get started even though they frequently ingest Ryan's body fluids. You know, Ryan's body fluid is the best potion for transforming the body. In comparison, the potion Harry brewed was like the difference between an elephant and an ant. Furin, who had used it to open up her Vila bloodline to the point where she could send and receive it freely, could speak for this. Thinking of this, Ryan couldn't help but think of Furin. Her lips and every inch of her skin felt like they were burning after being touched, which was very stimulating. While the only one who could do this was Nagini, but Nagini added physical attack, while Furin added magical attack. What are you thinking about, little brat? Kate looked at her own ordinariness and Penelope's ups and downs. No leak? But as Ryan's old wife, she was sure that Ryan was thinking about something naughty. Penelope also looked at Ryan suspiciously. Nothing. I just saw Potter and Weasley making a fool of themselves. Ryan waved his hand, and the scene came to Diagon Alley. Harry and Ron were now standing in a building that looked like a dictionary laid flat. Even the material looks like if it is made of paper and leather. The entrance to the building is located at the spine of a book, with the following words ironed on both sides: Flourish and Blott's Bookstore sells exquisite books in 125 BC. Harry and Ron were arguing. It's all your fault. You insisted on going to the store, and we had to spend a lot of money to check and maintain the wand. Harry rubbed his tangled hair with one hand. But it also allowed me to meet a new friend. And, Harry, Can you deny that our wands have become more lustrous? Ron pulled out his wand and rubbed it with his face. Seeing this, the wizards around took their hands out of their pockets. Because what Ron did just now was like taking out a gun on the street. If it wasn't for the fact that in the wizarding world you have a gun and wears a bulletproof vest. Harry suspected that the moment Ron drew his wand, he would be killed by a beam of colorful magic. Ron, let's not talk about what just happened. But now we've been out for so long. What if Mrs. Weasley finds out? What about us? Why don't we just go back? Before Harry could finish his words, he was pulled into the bookstore by Ron. Are you sure? Ron pointed to the corner. In the original Flourish and Blots, that was the window display, which usually displayed spell books as big as floor tiles with gold embossing. But now those books are gone, replaced by a large iron cage containing about 100 books everywhere. Merlin, these books are just, I wonder which unfortunate soul would buy them. Harry walked in and took a look. These book lists look pretty good, with green covers and golden titles printed on them. The Monster Book of Monsters, but when they move, they definitely won't make people want to buy them. Impatiently, pushing Harry aside, he put on a pair of thick gloves, picked up a thick, knotty cane, and walked towards the iron cage containing the Monster Book of Monsters. Harry, it seems we are the unlucky ones. Rum poked Harry. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 479, The Resigned Bookstore Manager. That's it. What's so funny? Looking at the scene in the air, the impatient Kate was the first to complain. I remember, Ryan, you are also a third-year student. Also, the content of the book The Monster Book of Monsters is very detailed. It is only inferior to Newt's in terms of breadth, but it is a magic book, which makes it better. The fun is yet to come. Ryan had a mysterious smile on his face. Mid-air picture inside Flourish and Blots bookstore in Diagon Alley. Wait, maybe this is a textbook for another subject. Maybe it's from another grade. Harry shook his head and said with hope. Wait, didn't you take care of magical creatures? Or do you just look too mature? You are just first or second grade students. The manager's voice trembled, revealing endless joy. However, we chose it. Also, we are just in our third year this year. Ron's answer ruthlessly shattered the manager's hopes. Just as the manager lowered his head again and walked towards the iron cage with a thick, knotty cane, Harry could not help but speak. The textbooks for each course are assigned by the professor of the corresponding subject. Professor Kilborn should have told me some tips on how to deal with these books. After all, if the books remain like this, how can students attend classes? Harry's words seemed to have touched the bookstore manager's sore spot. He didn't say anything. Usually when the professor doesn't say anything, it means he thinks we can't handle it. Like the Invisibility Book of Invisibility. Result is that until now, we still haven't found those 200 expensive and troublesome books. Ron was very confused by the bookstore manager's words. If you are not capable, can't you invite that professor or corresponding expert? Just a few galleons. And with invisibility, even if the books are invisible, you can still use your hands to feel around by inch to find them. Ron's words made Harry nod his head. These inch books are the magic books made by Professor Wink himself. No one else can handle it. Professor Wink himself was admitted to St. Mungo's for magical experiments 1 month after he was invited to become the Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts. He has not been discharged yet. As for finding it with your hands, those books contain the most advanced invisibility techniques. Professor Wink used them as a special book for 7th graders at the time. Which means that finding it by non-magical means is impossible. It can be said that even if we empty the bookstore and fill it with dust, we still can't find those books. The bookstore manager sighed. He resigned himself to his fate and held the 2 books tightly with his thick gloved hands, while he used his walking stick to keep away the others who wanted to pounce on him and bite him. Then he put the 2 books he took out under his buttocks. He pulled out more brand new hemp rope from the bookshelf and skillfully tied the 2 books together. 8 galleons in total. Do you need anything else? For your third year, you should also need Intermediate Transfiguration and Standard Spells, 3rd level. If you also choose Divination or Arithmetic Divination, you should also need a book called Seeing the Future Through the Mist by Cassandra Vabersky. Ask the bookstore manager for this course. You have always been Professor Bathsheba Baburin. Rune Dictionary, magical pronunciation table, etc. But these books are available at Hogwarts, and they are not needed in class, but reference books needed for homework. If you insist on buying them, I will." The bookstore manager was suddenly stunned, and he seemed to have thought of something. "You haven't received the book list yet, have you? Or are you actually students of Expelliarmus, Durmstrang, or Expelliarmus? But anyway, you will want these 2 books." The bookstore manager looked at Harry and Ron with a bitter face. "The miss that you just mentioned," Harry said hurriedly. Ron was very dissatisfied. "Don't you recognize my face? I'm Ron Weasley. I even drew Skywalker's gold card here in 1st grade. I was even in the Daily Prophet. How could I be a student of those other 3 shitty schools?" Ron waved his fist angrily. "Weasley, the son of the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement." But the bookstore manager, he didn't look at Ron. He turned to look at Harry. His face also turned red all of a sudden. His mouth opened as if he wanted to say something, but only some strange little noises came out, as if his throat was stuck. "Managers." Harry looked in the direction they were looking and saw a beautiful girl. She walked in gracefully. Her long, silver hair that fell to her waist like a waterfall, paired with a pair of big blue eyes and a row of neat, white teeth, made her look particularly charming. "Expelliarmus," the girl said softly with a smile. "It's me, that's what I just said, Expelliarmus. It's located in France. You can imagine its quality. Don't even mention Hogwarts. I think it can't even compare to the most depraved Durmstrang." Ron covered the mouth of the bookstore manager behind him and spoke flattering words to the strange girl. "What's your name?" "Ron Weasley." "Then you go out and yell, 'I, Ron Weasley, am a bastard' 10 times. And don't forget to cast the amplification charm." "Yes, sir." Ron walked out with a dazed look in Harry's shocked eyes. Chapter 480. Villa Fleur? Penelope said in surprise. "Her friend actually came to England. Is that why your expression was so strange before? How did Ron Weasley offend you?" Kate looked at Ron, who pointed his wand at his throat outside Flourish and Blots and shouted that he was a bastard because of Fleur. "How can it be so simple? Keep reading." Ryan shook his head. In Flourish and Blots, Harry drew out his wand. "What did you do to my friend?" Harry said, looking at the strange girl in front of him. The bookstore manager returned to normal, but still stole a glance at Furin from time to time. "What? Why didn't you stop your friend when he spoke ill of my school and country?" Fleur, a strange girl in Harry's eyes, said with a smile. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, and Harry felt that the anger in his heart inexplicably disappeared. But this, Harry didn't know what to say. "Mom, you are a student of Expelliarmus. Are you here to buy some Hogwarts textbooks to prepare for the Triwizard Tournament?" "I am not very talented, but as the owner of Flourish and Blots bookstore, I am very familiar with all textbooks. Do you want it?" While Harry was confused, the manager of Flourish and Blots bookstore began to show his courtesy. He stuttered a little at the beginning, but became very confident when he talked about his major later. Later on, he even started to introduce outrageous information such as he was unmarried, had a high salary, graduated from Hogwarts, and his home address. Just as Harry's thoughts were becoming more and more outrageous, thinking that the bookstore manager was stealing his limelight, and just when he was about to point his wand at the bookstore manager, the door opened. The person who came in made Harry shudder and return to normal. "It's Mrs. Weasley." She came in, pulling Ron's ear. He looked straight at the charming girl. "I don't think it's a good idea to treat a child like this." Mrs. Weasley rolled her eyes and let go of Ron's ear. "Mom, it's all my fault. I just said something bad about this lady. I deserve this," Ron said cheekily. He covered his ears, which were pulled red, and looked at the girl evasively. "Mrs. Weasley, it was indeed the young master who first slandered this young lady's country and school." She looked at Harry. "It is true, this lady is from Expelliarmus in France." Harry agreed. "Come out here." Mrs. Weasley slowed down her pace as she dragged Ron closer to the leaky cauldron. "That girl just now definitely has Villa. Fortunately, you are not like Ron," Mrs. Weasley said softly to Harry. "What are Villa?" Harry asked curiously. This may be related to the source of the girl's charm. They are humanoid creatures. In their normal state, they are just like human women, stunningly beautiful. Their skin glows like the moon, and their hair flutters behind their heads even without wind. Fireballs. Mrs. Weasley paused and uttered the last few words with difficulty. Their charm can make men obsessed and crazy. Can a Vila and a wizard have children? Harry asked. Harry couldn't help but imagine. If this is the case with a half-Vila, what would happen if it were a Vila? Thinking about it this way, it's no big deal to have a bird's head. Maybe it's even more exciting. What about that lady? Will she also turn into a bird-like creature? Ron asked in an anxious tone. Half-Vila will inherit some Vila traits from their mother, such as stunning beauty and the ability to make men obsessed. Mrs. Weasley said to Harry, then looked at Ron, but it is still unknown whether half-blood Vila have the ability to transform into a bird like normal Vila. How do you eat? Ron frowned. When he first saw the lady, he had already thought of what to name the child. Mrs. Weasley's words made him worried. What if his child accidentally made him worried turned out to be a bird head? Well, there aren't many people here. Mrs. Weasley looked around and whispered to Ron, who was still struggling. Harry couldn't help but take a few steps back. But Ron seemed unaware of the danger. Ron Weasley, can you tell me why I saw you and Harry in Diagon Alley? Mrs. Weasley's voice was gentle, but Ron, who had been frowning just now, turned pale and couldn't help shaking. We the lady just now, we would have returned after buying books. Ron said hurriedly. It's true. What we need is the Monster Book of Monsters, Intermediate Transfiguration, Standard Spells, Level 3, and Seeing the Future Through the Mist. If you don't believe me, I'll check it out when the book list arrives. Harry, say something. Ron shrank his neck and couldn't help swallowing. We are definitely going to buy books. The bookstore manager thought we were students from the other 3 schools in the Triwizard Tournament. Then Ron got into his old habit again and said bad things about the school. You know the rest. Harry mustered up the courage to speak half-truths. Then how did you get here? If it's the Flu Network, then that's easy. But if, Mrs. Weasley's lips were slightly raised, but to Ron it was like a tiger bearing his fangs. He fumbled nervously in his pocket, hoping to touch the non-existent green flu powder. It's over. If Mom finds out that it was because of me that Harry used the mirror world to get to Diagon Alley, I'll be finished. Ron couldn't help but think. Is this it? Harry took out the flu powder he had prepared in advance. Ron breathed a sigh of relief. He almost cried just now. You're lucky. Don't blame me for being too strict, Harry. I'm doing this for your own good. The world outside is too dangerous. Ron is lucky today. What if he met a dark wizard instead of a half-blood Vila? Mrs. Weasley said earnestly. Chapter 481 Hot Girl Furin. I just foresaw this. Besides, Ron deserves it. We all know that Fleur's personality is not as good as she looks. Ryan shrugged. As a half-Vila, Furin cannot transform into a winged bird-headed person with scales on her wings and the ability to release fireballs just because she's angry. But she seems to have turned this form into an aspect of her personality. If Furin hadn't known that Ryan knew Ron, Ron wouldn't have had such an easy ending. Is something wrong? What Ron said was fine, except for the insult to Bulk's buttons. Kate blinked her big eyes. The same is true for Penelope. Ryan thought they were united in targeting Furin, but the next second he understood why. Britain and France are countries that don't like each other. That's how it is in language. For example, syphilis means disease in English in French. And in English, it is a French disease military code in French and the French letter in English. The derogatory term for leaving without saying goodbye is leave like an Englishman in French and leave like a Frenchman in English. This is true in language, not to mention other aspects. In short, Britain and France are implicitly slandering each other in every aspect with a strange expression. Could it be that she noticed? Hiss. Fleur is indeed my friend. I really love her. And no prejudice against the French. I like the way they make sounds between words, like, Penelope paused and cleared her throat. I want goose 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 a croissant goose goose just now. She actually changed her voice into Furin's tone. If Ryan closed his eyes, he would almost think Fleur was here. Yet, those French people seem to be afraid of being interrupted when they are talking. We don't say I want some toast Kate also imitated Fleur vividly. Kate, Penelope, is this how you all look at me? A hoarse voice suddenly sounded. It's hibiscus. Penelope and Kate were startled at first, and then they were shocked by the woman in front of them. Even though they were women, they had to admit that Furin was stunningly beautiful. The empty yard suddenly became suffocating. Furin has a tall and slender figure, with golden hair, and seems to emit a faint silver light all over her body. Furthermore, she was carrying a pile of books in her hands. In the eyes of Ravenclaw's Kate and Penelope, this makes the whole picture even more perfect. But fortunately, there is another spotlight in this yard, Ryan. This woke them up quickly, and they looked at each other with complicated eyes, then looked at Ryan closely. Phlegm. The French pronunciation of Fleur's name is similar to the English pronunciation of phlegm, Kate couldn't help thinking. Why is Fleur's charm becoming more and more exaggerated? Penelope couldn't help but have such a thought in her mind for a moment. But the two quickly regained their composure and put on welcoming smiles. And during the time when both of them were distracted, "Hello, Ryan." Fiorin stood on tiptoes enthusiastically and kissed Ryan on both cheeks. Ryan just felt a burning sensation where he was kissed. Ryan, who was a Chongqing native before traveling through time, had 3 words emerge in his heart: hot girl. Fake hot chicks have hot personalities and can eat spicy food. Real hot chicks will make you hot directly. Hey, stay away from the little brat. Kate appeared between Ryan and Fiorin and wiped Ryan's face in disgust. "Ryan, it's you." Penelope didn't pay too much attention to Fiorin's behavior. To her it was just French social etiquette, so she understood one thing the moment she woke up: that means it must be Ryan's fault that Fiorin came here at the right time. Only he could transfer Fleur from Diagon Alley in London without any worldly concerns. After all, no one except Ryan can operate in Smith Castle. Kate's flash just now was through the movement of shadow. Ryan just wanted to give you a surprise. After all, we haven't seen each other for almost a year. Fiorin lifted her hair, her eyes moving. Of course it is. I'm still bored of watching Ron and Harry's boring passion story. Ryan then agreed. Just assume you're real. Kate puffed up her little face and buried her head in Ryan's arms. Ryan waved his hand, and the scene around him began to change. The next second they appeared in the lounge on the second floor. On the bookshelf in the lounge, there is a hamster running on a flywheel in a transparent box. But Harry and Ron on the other side were not as lucky as Ryan. Dr. Hamster Whale, which can absorb the negative emotions of people around them and force them to be calm. Harry and Ron stood uneasily beside the burrow, which had become so spacious that it could even accommodate several long fiery red sofas. The only dissatisfaction he showed was that he no longer called him Harry affectionately there too long. The Weasley family, except Mr. Weasley, came to the sofa in front of the fireplace to wait for them to return. But this also made Harry a little confused. They all seemed so sure that Mrs. Weasley would catch them in Diagon Alley. That meant that after they showed up in Diagon Alley, someone saw them and reported the news back to the Weasleys. "Harry, please sit down. We all know you're a good kid." This must be Ron's instigation again. Mrs. Weasley's calm tone brought Harry back to his senses. Only then did he notice the eyes fixed on him. Bill. Ginny's eyes seemed to speak, and the moment Harry looked at her, he knew that she didn't care about these. But Bill's eyes were full of gloating. "Mom, how did you know Harry and I were in Diagon Alley?" Ron couldn't help but ask of shame. "Look at Harry. I didn't say anything, but he stood with you as punishment. I don't think you can have dinner tonight," Mrs. Weasley shouted in a loud voice. Chapter 482, Discovery of the North Sea. Ron didn't end up at the table. But he was not hungry. At the table, Fred and George kept sneaking bits of food toward him: pie, chicken legs, even a bowl of soup. However, George cast a spell on the soup so that it fell steadily into Ron's hands. This made Harry, who had just wanted to see Ron make a fool of himself, a little disappointed. These actions were actually discovered by Mrs. Weasley. But she didn't say much. Instead, he subtly placed Ron's favorite dishes next to Fred and George's. "Ginny, what happened to your mother? Why is it that she becomes a different person as soon as your father comes back?" Harry whispered in Ginny's ear. "It's itchy." Ginny made a mosquito-like sound and blushed one, but Harry's sudden disappearance just happened not long ago. Ron was being foolish and getting into another act with Harry. It would be strange if Mom wasn't. Logically speaking, even if Dad came back with good news, Mom shouldn't be nice to Ron. Not to mention letting him eat. Ginny shook her head, indicating to Harry that she didn't understand. She squinted her eyes and looked at her mother. "It's angry. Very weird." Ginny then realized something. Revenge was like the joy Aunt Muriel showed in private when she was a child after Fred and George played a prank on her and she decided not to come to their house again. Only this time it's going to be much bigger. Ginny looked at the culprit, her father, again, and there was indeed something very wrong with him. It seems like he has some news he wants to share, but doesn't dare to say it. Staring at Mother from time to time. Just like this, 3 years ago, when he invented a flying car and wanted to share it with his family, he was hesitant to speak. Dad, what do you want to say? Charlie, the quietest of the Wheel Eyes, seemed to have discovered something. He is not as simple as his honest appearance. Is Dad going to invite Aunt Muriel again? No. She will definitely not be happy with us when she comes. Fan, what's wrong? Bill came back to his senses after his attention was focused on the flirting between Harry and Ginny. Can I come over for dinner? The last one to ask was Ron. Harry and Ginny said nothing. They all looked up at Mrs. Weasley with wide eyes. The person who can actually make the decisions at this table, Molly. Zio shake. The kids are still here. Well, Arthur, go ahead. And Ron, you can go back to the table to eat too. Mrs. Weasley said with a mixture of shyness and joy. Great. Ron, who didn't know what was going on and didn't know how to be kind, sat down next to Harry and made a face at Fred and George. Perhaps this is why our Ron has always been targeted by Fred and George. Harry thought unconsciously as his attention was amused from Mrs. Weasley. Children. That's right, said Mr. Weasley, taking a swig of his sherry. As you all know, Azkaban has been gone for a long time. But the Ministry of Magic still maintains a 24-hour shift on duty in the North Sea. Hearing this, Bill raised a question, but didn't Azkaban disappear out of thin air? We have inexplicably forgotten its exact address. It's like it's protected by a Fidelius charm. That's all thanks to Dumbledore. He and that Riddle were busy with these things some time ago. Finally found the original address of Azkaban. Although the area inexplicably became an empty sea, and the entire island disappeared. But Dumbledore has told us to keep monitoring the area to see if there are any additional discoveries, Mr. Weasley said proudly. Dumbledore seemed very pleased with his discovery, not at all ashamed that the Ministry of Magic is being told what to do by people outside the system. Although he worked at the Ministry of Magic and even held a high position in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, he sounded more like Dumbledore's man through and through. What discovery could it be that Antonin Dolohhov's body has been found? Fred and George speculated. They all knew that before the war was over, their mother's two older brothers, Fabian and Gideon Pruitt, were attacked and killed by 5 Death Eaters. One of them was Antonin Dolohhov. After Voldemort lost his power, the Death Eaters who had brutally murdered Fabian and Gideon, including Dolohhov, were imprisoned in Azkaban. The other 4 Death Eaters died inexplicably. However, Dolohhov has survived this day relying on his superb magic skills. It's just one of those surprises, Mr. Weasley shrugged. Are the other Death Eaters dead, too? Bellatrix Lestrange. Bill raised his hand. As the oldest child, he had met the Longbottoms. Mrs. Longbottom was quite nice to him. If it was Bella and several other Death Eaters who tortured them to death and went crazy, they would die. He was willing to cut off his favorite long hair for this. Unfortunately, not yet. Seeing that the other children did not make any further guesses, Mr. Weasley stopped keeping them in suspense. He cleared his throat and continued. There were 2 employees on duty at the time. They were both Aurors. One was named Dick and the other was named Dex. They both graduated a few years ago. I wonder if you two know each other. Mr. Weasley looked at Bill and Charlie. Dick is such a special name. As I remember, he graduated 2 years earlier than me and was a Hufflepuff student. But I'm not very familiar with it. Bill shook his head. The other one is Finny Dax. I know him, girlfriend, right after graduation. Charlie agreed after hearing the full name. Then, you can get to know each other. They both have many female relatives of the right age. Mr. Weasley was immediately relieved. Father, I can do it myself. You continue with the rest. Bill and Charlie said hurriedly. Okay. As rat bones with traces of human gnawing on them. Mrs. Weasley finally laughed when her husband said this. Chapter 483. Mr. Weasley's doubts. This means one thing. The current Death Eaters don't have wands, or can't use magic. Of his leg bone as a weapon, it also shows that the Death Eaters are even short of tools now. They have never left a magical life and have fallen to the point of using the corpses of their companions. Mr. Weasley laughed until tears came out. I can't even now forget the bones that were broken and then polished by the stone. It was even more of a surprise to find out it came from Dolohhov. But unfortunately, the bones were used by Klein to make table legs. His parents, wife, and children were all killed by Dolohhov. Mr. Weasley spoke vaguely while eating a piece of pie after calming down. Yes, it's a pity indeed, said Mrs. Weasley through gritted teeth. Harry shuddered. He knew why and how the other 4 Death Eaters who had killed Mrs. Weasley's 2 brothers had died. This behavior is probably not uncommon. After all, Harry had investigated and found that nearly 100 Death Eaters, some of whom were not given the Dark Mark, were arrested and sent to Azkaban. Except for a few who were released because they had not done anything evil, or there was no evidence that they had done evil, and with the help of Jin Gallion. This does not include Crouch Jr., who was arrested in recent years. The only 7 Death Eaters left were Antonin Dolohov, the Mulciber father and son, Bellatrix Lestrange and her husband and brother-in-law, and Traverse Number, felt very angry. However, this also shows how terrifying these Death Eaters are. They were deliberately placed closer to the Dementors, yet they have survived until now instead of becoming a cold number like those hundreds of Death Eaters, but it's still a little strange. Mr. Weasley added after everyone calmed down from their joy. What's weird? Could it be that there are signs of someone gnawing on Dolahov's thigh bone? Fred and George casually, looking as if they were eager to see the world in chaos. Stop talking. I feel like vomiting. Ron, who was gnawing on a chicken leg, hesitated whether to take another bite. But Fred and George ignored him and became even more excited. George, could this be the whereabouts of Strange Dolahov's other bones? We can't use the word strange here, this is called curiosity. We are all Dad's sons. Maybe Dad will make the same mistake as me. Eaters were really unable to use magic. I think the Death Eaters must be unable to use magic. After all, bones are top quality materials for the dark arts, and those from dark wizards like Dolohov are even more precious. Bill was the first to put forward his opinion. Azkaban disappeared in January, so it's been almost 6 months now. Maybe they just think these bones are more important to them as weapons. Charlie nodded, but then shook his head. You may have forgotten one thing. The last thing Azkaban lacks is wizard bones. There are graves all over the prison. They probably used some magic to overcome the lack of wands and used the bones for some evil ritual. And all dark magic rituals have some negative effects, and playing with bones is just the mildest of them. I still remember when I passed through Nocturne Alley, there was an old witch who greeted me with a dish of dead people's nails and moss on her tongue. I later found out that she used to be a very kind person and was a healer at St. Mungo's. But because of the death of his son, he turned his attention to black magic rituals, and that's when it became like that. So I think those Death Eaters were changed by the dark magic ritual. Besides, they have been in Azkaban for so many years, and they are not like Sirius, who knows that they are actually innocent. They will become crazy if they are not crazy. Facing his 2 brothers, Percy expressed his opinion and Ginny started to show their affection again. Ding ding ding. Mr. Weasley tapped his cup with the side of his fork. Everyone looked over. What I find the most bizarre are the rats. There aren't actually any rats on that island. Can't survive because of the Dementors' passivity, cold and fear. This is the conclusion drawn by a magical biologist who once conducted an experiment on mice to study Dementors. Mr. Weasley frowned. Maybe underground. They had underground because of the Dementors. Perhaps the Dementors disappeared along with the island. The rats that had been hiding underground crawled to the surface, where they were discovered by the Death Eaters and eaten as food. Bill proposed a possibility. Rat bones have fallen into the sea from somewhere else. After all, there are some deserted islands in the North Sea. Could the suspected human bite marks be caused by an animal bite similar to tooth marks? Ron, as usual, had no tact at all and made a disappointing suggestion. Mrs. Weasley was a bit of a dampener, at least, Harry observed. It seemed as if he was about to make the same expression that Ron kept from eating that night. But Mr. Weasley's words came in time to save Ron. It's impossible. The rat bones and human bones all. Harry stood up quickly and looked at Mr. Weasley. Have you ever thought about the possibility that it was because of your isolation that the Death Eaters started eating rats? It occurred to me again. Ron suddenly shouted. Mrs. Weasley turned her head away. Ron, not realizing that he seemed to be closest to death, said, "Why don't we poison the isolated sea area?" Chapter 484 Snape's Warning. Poisoned? Harry noticed that when she heard these 2 words, Mrs. Weasley's eyes turned kind again. Then he seemed to be thinking about the feasibility of this idea. Arthur, write to Severus, ask for some good potions. Mrs. Weasley raised her head and said after pondering for a moment, they don't drink seawater. And there's fresh water on the island. Mr. Weasley shook his head. Why? Can't the magic that isolates the sea area temporarily allow some fish to enter? We just need to ask Severus to investigate a poison that will attach itself to the fish without killing them, Mrs. Weasley said immediately. All Harry wanted to say was good fellow. And he now noticed that Mrs. Weasley had changed the way she addressed Snape. An advanced sound of people coming up the stairs not far away remained. At night, in the garden of the burrow, Harry took out his wand and wove a hammock out of weeds, hanging it between the tangled roots of the trees. Spells after spells drove away annoyingly mosquitoes and goblins that might suddenly appear. Harry and Ginny sat in the hammock, looking at the dark green pond at night, and recalled this magical day. Fortunately, Ron was busy writing letters to his new friends. What's her name? Wayne Campbell. Ginny tucked her fiery red hair. Harry acknowledged subconsciously. His attention was focused on Ginny's angular jawline, which was revealed intentionally or unintentionally, and her youthful masseter muscles. The cold moonlight sprinkled on her white nose dotted with freckles, making her look particularly beautiful. Harry. Harry. Harry didn't respond until Ginny pushed him. What? I mean, you put it very well, Harry quickly. Then I hugged her. It seems that they want to use body language and lip service to replace normal communication. What did I just say? Ginny gently pushed Harry away and pointed a finger at his lips. Harry pretended to bite, but Ginny dodged it nimbly. Let out a laugh like a silver bell. Only then did Harry realize that if he didn't answer the questions well today, Ginny would be the same as Ron in his eyes. Only simple physical contact and verbal communication are possible. Are you saying Mrs. Weasley's ideas are outrageous? Ginny shook her head. Ron will be pissed if he hears this. This was his idea. Harry knew that this was a euphemism for saying that he was wrong, so he could only frown and ask again, are you saying that Ron and I were too reckless? That we shouldn't use the abilities granted by the mirror world? I believe you on this. Ginny still shook her head. Are you angry? Because of my reaction to that half-villa. I knew I shouldn't have told the truth. Ron is right sometimes. Harry saw Ginny was silent for a long time after hearing this, and waved his fist in frustration. That's a villa. Even if you're half-blood, it's inevitable that you'll behave like this. Ginny made a face. She didn't think it was a big deal. In France, there are many single witches. And they can't get married because of the villa. If it weren't for the old-fashioned bloodline concept of pure-blood wizards, the number of single witches would probably be even higher. But this is also the main reason why there are too many half-blood wizards and muggles, in France. Most of these half-blood wizards have a wizard on their mother's side. This is also why Grindelwald encountered the greatest resistance in France. So much so that Paris burned down. Because most of the wizards here have muggle relatives. Harry naturally couldn't hear what Ginny was thinking. He just thought Ginny was really mad. She was being sarcastic. Ginny, when I first saw you, my heart turned into the quaffle. I am a lousy chaser and I need to spend my whole life searching for you. You are the phoenix that sings in my heart, the second heartbeat in my forehead, and the courage that burns in the face of adversity. So he started a lot of sweet words. Seeing that Ginny still didn't respond, he had to pull out his trump card. If you were Voldemort, I would also be willing to kiss your invisible lips, caress your wax face, and willingly accept your fleeting green light of love. Haha. Ginny burst out laughing. If you don't laugh when you listen to the poem I wrote for you, I'll forgive you. Ginny suppressed her coldness and pretended to be serious. Harry quickly. His eyes are as green as a freshly picked toad, and he's as black and handsome as a blackboard. I hope he's mine. He is really handsome and a warrior who conquers the Dark Lord. Ginny closed her eyes and looked in the other direction. He seemed to be afraid of not being able to hold back his laughter. But, Ginny, do my eyes really look like pickled toads? Harry was frowning. Ginny said nothing, her face showing horror. Harry drew his wand, blocked her off, and turned his head hastily. It's the vampire Snape. Big black bat. Harry, as if he had practiced it 1,000 times, created a whirlwind of magic on the spot, and skillfully took Ginny to hide in the blind spot from the other party's sight, and then, powder body, it's you, Professor Snape. Harry smiled awkwardly and quickly put his wand back into his pocket, pulled Ginny out from behind her ass, and straightened Ginny's hair that was blown into a mess by the wind. Damn. It must have been the croaking of frogs in the pond, masking the crackling sound of Professor Snape parading towards him. There is obviously a flu network. Why do you need to use apparition? Very nice poem. Ms. Weasley. Snape had a blank expression on his face, the muscles on his face twitching with difficulty, and then he uttered these words. When did you show up? Harry swallowed. Potter, start from Voldemort and the green light of love. Expressionlessly. Harry tried to read the expression through his eyes. But Professor Snape's eyes, as dark as two train tunnels, drowned out everything. But it was not Harry, not Mr. Potter, but the long, drawn-out voice that Harry had only heard in his first potions class that showed Professor Snape seemed angry. It's fine now. Voldemort will soon be history. Mirror World and Pluto Dragon are not things you should consider. Your life does not belong to you alone. Professor Snape forced these words out of his mouth. He looked at Harry's black hair, then at Ginny's red hair. The corners of his mouth twitched unsightly, and he turned and walked towards the burrow, which was shining with a warm light. But Harry felt that he was walking into darkness as deep and bottomless as his black wizard robe. Chapter 485, an attempt doomed to fail. But you don't understand why I did all this. Harry looked at Snape's back and said to himself with his eyes lowered. Harry knew what Snape had just seen. It was him with black hair and Lily Evans with red hair. He in the past and the future that only appeared in dreams. A sudden sense of urgency emerged in Harry. After all these days, he could only carve 79 words on the pudding. The further he progressed, the harder it became for Harry. What if he never? Ginny had no idea what Harry had just been thinking. She just thought that Harry was as frightened by Snape's sudden appearance as she was. Harry, so Ron's idea is really feasible, Ginny said as she smoothed her hair which had just been messed up by the wind. Although Harry had just straightened it, it was still a little messier than before. And will Voldemort's enchantment that hides the entire island really allow anything harmful to his men to enter? If this is possible, then why not just sprinkle the poisonous potion in that isolated sea area, which will take a long time to evaporate into gas? This is more effective, and it can also prevent the Death Eaters from hunting in the sea. Harry came back to his senses and quickly analyzed Ron's idea. Maybe. I think Professor Snape's thoughts are definitely not as simple as Ron's. Ginny looked down at the burrow and took a deep breath. However, none of the Weasley family, nor Harry, knew that all this was because of Ryan. Azkaban is the largest prison in the wizarding world, and perhaps even in the world. Because there is no death penalty and the Dementors have a spirit of sustainable development, the space of Azkaban has been expanded year by year to its current size. Plus, no one in the Ministry of Magic wanted to get close to the nightmarish place of Azkaban. This resulted in a large amount of food being stored inside the prison, preserved using magic. They should be enough to feed the 7 remaining Death Eaters for a year. The Death Eaters' previous desert hunting was just to have something fresh to eat as a snack. Island, he tinkered a little with the magic that protected the food. It was an unexpected move to have both the Death Eaters and the resurrected Voldemort on the mission. In addition, due to various accidents, the Death Eaters once were Broken Island. However, Ryan now has no time to show his kindness and goodness to Kate and the others. Kate and Penelope were both attracted by Ron's idea and started a discussion. Even Furin thought, that annoying red-haired kid's idea is not bad, even. That fellow Snape agreed to approach directly to the burrow at this time. How annoying. I was just about to laugh at Ginny's poem. Kate snorted angrily. What do you think, Ryan? Making it more interesting, Weasley. And the others are overwhelmed with joy. Snape, too. They certainly didn't ask Dumbledore or Riddle. The disappeared island, or the barrier separating the island from the outside world and itself, are all equivalent to Voldemort. It's like those Death Eaters live inside him. His subconscious mind will reject anything that affects the lives of his men. He is now the destiny of that island. Ryan said with a hint of admiration, surprisingly the same as his Moon Phantom. His Moon Phantom, the illusory giant god, the real Ryan contains a space inside his body. No, or rather it is an independent world. It can be called a foreign land. The bathroom turned into the starry sky and the Milky Way flowed inside. Every illusory star carries a bit of the spirituality of the mermaid in the magic painting. They who were given life by Ryan will become star masters, leading the reproduction, death and rebirth of the ignorant consciousnesses on this star. These cycles will also provide Ryan with the nourishment for his progress. This is the demigod wizard's further step and return to the ancient wizard, that is, the realm of gods. The powerful wizards at that time were so powerful that their magic could even activate the space around them. Their unique and expert areas, thoughts, and magic filled that space. The kingdom of God. He is resurrected in this way. He will definitely be able to get one step closer. Can Dumbledore and that Riddle feel this? Kate questioned. When she was at Hogwarts, She had felt that if she put all her strength into it, she could take both of their lives, but even so, when she went to look around the North Sea out of curiosity, she did not sense what Ryan said, and Ryan obviously read Kate's thoughts from her face. You rely on your face and the deadly poison transformed from speed. Your magic power, your knowledge, magic power, and essence are not as good as theirs. You are just strong, but at the wizard level, you are still an ordinary wizard, and Dumbledore is a demigod wizard who has recovered a little bit of his wizarding essence. Riddle is a part of Voldemort at the same level as Dumbledore. He naturally awakened to the essence of that realm. If he hadn't given up his previous thoughts, he would have become a demigod wizard due to a bug. When they approached that area, they could clearly feel that there was a Voldemort sleeping there who was untouchable and existed and did not exist at the same time. Ryan looked at Kate. Kate followed the path Ryan had originally prepared for himself. Rely on the powerful body to overtake on the curve. Pure wizards are actually physically similar to ordinary people. The same goes for demigod wizards. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 486 about Horclap. Ryan never dreamed that the topic would turn to this. Ryan, baby, I think cockroaches are great. If those Death Eaters only eat rats, I'm afraid they will be malnourished. Kate, who had just been hit by Ryan, changed the subject. Ryan's act of moving the rats gave her inspiration. It made her interested in writing a recipe for the Death Eaters. What's even more outrageous is that Penelope does the same thing. If there are rats, they won't eat cockroaches. I think bats are more appropriate. It goes better with mice. Penelope made her suggestion, arguing that bats are mice with wings. I think we should move some of the hornbills, a pink, spiky, mushroom-like animal. It is a magical creature after all. Compared to mice, those dark wizards should be more willing to eat it. Fleur also twisted her hoarse throat and said, Fleur, you haven't seen Horclap in France. Penelope blushed. What a bummer, Kate muttered, seeming to be disgusted. Is there something wrong? Horclap reproduces vigorously and can cover an average-sized garden in a few days. And goblins like to eat it, too. Horcrux juice can be used to make healing potions. It's very nutritious. Furin looked puzzled. The topic ends here. Plus, because it was very late, the three of them went to their own rooms to rest. However, Furin's doubts were soon resolved. That night, she followed a lot of Horcrux juice. In the following days, Ryan still suits and introduced cockroaches, bats and hornets to Azkaban. With the help of Ryan, the fish possessed by the potion that Snape was studying in the sea near the island. And changes occurred accidentally. Ryan got a very exciting video. This episode is sure to be a hit, Ryan exclaimed from the tower of Smith Castle. It was already July, and Ryan accidentally mentioned that their family had a tall tower that served as the Smith family's address to the outside world. And after Voldemort invaded 3 times, leaving many corpses in the canyon next to the tower, the 4 of them came here. While playing the detective game by looking at the corpses, guessing the identities of the skeletons, you can also take in the beautiful Nottingham Forest at dusk. Which episode, that? Death Eaters on Desert Island game you keep talking about. Kate flashed and hung on Ryan's body. A silver rune representing the meaning of connection lit up on her right hand, trying to see something through Ryan's senses. But Kate's brown eyes showed that it hadn't worked. Do you really want to see it? Ryan showed a wicked smile on his face. No, I don't want to think about it anymore. Kate immediately realized that something was wrong and wanted to hide in the shadows. But Ryan stopped her. Ryan was seen holding the hood of Kate's wizard robe with his right hand and swinging it back and forth. It's like gently swinging a yo-yo. The red magic glow rippled around Kate, but it had no effect. It was interrupted by Ryan's simple and unworldly action. Finally, Kate gave up struggling and hung on Ryan's neck again, her little face hitting Ryan's shoulder hard. Ryan grinned wickedly and patted Kate's butt with his left hand, which was shining with silver light. At the same time, the wonderful scene he had just seen on the island was captured in Kate's mind. Kate now just wanted to dig out her eyes and wash them. She couldn't believe she was seeing this. Now they are all like Aunt Dumbledore's famous fiancé. From this perspective, the only normal person is Bella, whose gender is very suitable for this behavior. What's wrong? Penelope left Fleur, who was screaming at the top of the tower, and looked at Kate, who was burying her head in Ryan and making painful sounds from time to time. Penelope, I'm not clean anymore. Ryan dislikes me. Kate jumped off Ryan, and before she landed on the ground, she appeared in Penelope's arms the next second. This has nothing to do with me. Kate insisted on seeing it. Penelope stabbed Ryan in the face. What did you see? Penelope looked at Kate, carefully avoiding Ryan's sight. She didn't want to end up like Kate. I saw hell. Ryan, is that faintly visible white thing in the grass a fish bone? Kate, who couldn't help but recall the scene when asked by Penelope, discovered something was wrong. Is it the effect of the potion? I mean, did Snape really poison it according to Ron's idea? Penelope couldn't help but take a few steps towards Ryan. So much harm to people. Why not poison? Just poison those Death Eaters to death. Kate raised her little face, her eyes looking. Cough. Ryan cleared his throat. This is a mutation. It's all of Voldemort's fault. Those poisons, under the influence of Voldemort's subconscious, turned into potions that made people crazy and obsessed with Horcrux. But I remember you were the one who showed Kate these images. And is there any potion that can make people obsessed with Horcrux? Even if it's a mutation, it won't. Penelope was speechless and looked at Ryan, who was pretending. Kate also looked at him with a grin. Don't look at me. It all has to do with the recipe of the poison. The only non-toxic material in it is the Horcrux juice. The rest are highly toxic items, such as the poison bubble of the leopard and the venom of the giant spider. I want to see what those Death Eaters will do when they wake up. Kate wiped her tears angrily and said viciously. Chapter 487, Death Eaters' Survival on a Deserted Island. The great and holy Lord of Black Magic will take 37 weeks to restore his heartbeat, days to regain consciousness, days to restore his strength, and 1 day to regain the world. In the dark night, accompanied by the sound of waves hitting the rocks, the Death Eaters began to pray in unison beside a crackling fire. This is what they do every day before meals. When they lost their magic, normal food, and clothing, they began to pin everything on Voldemort. Just like before Azkaban disappeared. Their food consisted of fat mice skewered on wet branches. Important plans. He was worried that Bella's pregnancy would affect Voldemort's comeback. He actually learned how to use fish bubbles without any guidance. Pornography is indeed the primary productive force. As for why they don't eat fish, it's because they find that fish contains some kind of magical power that can make people confused. Rodolphus Lestrange thought he was most impressed by this, because in addition to eating Horcrux like everyone else, he also unexpectedly saw Bella rolling around with his brother. Robaston Lestrange concealed this, and replaced his brother with himself until they were both back to normal. He has long been accustomed to it. Before it was Voldemort, so wouldn't his brother be closer to him now? He also thought that it would be better not to cause trouble before Voldemort was fully resurrected. Rodolphus, you are eating delicious food, aren't you? Why do you and Bella eat fish secretly together all day long? Old Mosiber moved a little further away from Rodolphus and Bella, who were smelling of fish, with disgust. Then he took a deep breath of the rat's tail. In this barren environment, he began to like eating rat tails. So much so that his rat tail was barely roasted and still retained its original crispness. It gave him the same feeling as eating his favorite pasta. There must be something wrong with this fish. It will have a greater impact on the wizard. Brother, your spirit is worse much? Robaston looked at his brother worriedly. At the same time, he quickly glanced at Bella, who was wearing tattered clothes and exposing her nude body. For some reason, ever since he had eaten fish not long ago, he had found his sister-in-law Bella particularly charming. He thought it must be the fish's fault. As he was thinking, he bit off the mouse's head, and a crunching sound came from his mouth. The Lestranges all have strong cedar muscles, hard jaws, and teeth that are almost as hard as steel. Him now, he is the strongest person on the entire island, except for his brother and sister-in-law. Because he can get extra energy from his bones. After being freed from magic, growing strong is the key to becoming the king of this island. Thinking of this, Robaston looked at Crouch Jr. Robaston on the other side was also thinking about fighting for power in this situation. Claiming to be the most loyal Death Eater of Voldemort, Crouch Jr. focused all his attention on eating. I even ate mice with gusto. He also showed no disgust towards other cockroaches and bats. It sounds strange, but that's what Crouch Jr. thinks: well, sleep well, and review magic. Get ready for Voldemort's return. He even carefully studied the Muggle book 100 Questions on Desert Island Survival, discovered by Little Mo Cyber. Strive to stay in the best condition on the desert island. After eating a mouse, Little Crouch sighed as he was still trying to pick out some flesh and blood from the bones with his teeth. He looked at his torn outfit and sat at the lack of fabric. It is useful for sun protection, filtering water, wrapping wounds, etc. Logically speaking, there should be no shortage of clothes in Azkaban, where corpses are everywhere. But the Dark Lord destroyed all of them one by one with his magic during the resurrection ceremony. After so many days, their clothes were torn from hunting. His eyes glanced at Bella, who was sitting diagonally across from him. I have to say, when he saw Bella's torn clothes, he felt something. He recalled the party they had had after fishing near the reef a few days ago. At that time, in the confused moment of eating the fish, he had an unclear relationship with that woman. But fortunately, because of his father's head, he woke up temporarily in time and escaped from the scene in time. He didn't know what happened next. All he knew was that when he woke up, he was kissing his father's head. And at the cut-off point below my father's head, a shriveled hawklip was placed, hunting as an excuse to rummage through the soil before feasting on it. Little Crouch, can you lend me your father's head to play with? The speaker was the most perverted Traverse. But Crouch Jr. knew what he was doing. Fearing that his father's head would be damaged by Traverse, he secretly followed Traverse into the woods as a straw to suck the Horklap juice. And he kept repeating his name in a low voice. He did unspeakable things to his father's head. Thinking of this, Crouch Jr. got goosebumps. Only then did he realize one thing, that his father was actually very similar to him. Also, why did my buttocks feel inexplicably swollen and painful after waking up? Traverse probably never knew when he fell in love with him. Here you go. Crouch Jr. pretended nothing had happened and handed his father's head to Traverse. He thought that after venting his anger, Traverse might not pay attention to him anymore. Crouch Jr. is more determined to keep fit to prevent Traverse from doing unspeakable things to him. I'm going to exercise. After Traverse ran to the grove, Crouch Jr. said goodbye to the rest of the people and headed to the beach. Great. Exercise. Crouch Jr. really wants to overthrow our Lestrange hegemony. This boy must not be allowed to stay. Rabaston thought as he looked deeply at Crouch Jr.'s back. Chapter 488 Confrontation. Father, we also, while Rabaston was thinking about how to show his authority, Little Mo Cyber on the side glanced at Old Mo Cyber. Yet, after eating the mouse, Old Mo Cyber swallowed the mouse tail that he had sucked many times but failed to swallow in one breath, and agreed again. Now, it was time for him and his son to have a snack. Bella and Rodolphus looked at each other and walked towards the room in the prison where only they knew the fresh fish bubbles were hidden. Only Rabaston was left standing by the fire in a daze. Ryan waved his hand thousands of miles away, and the image of the Death Eaters on the deserted island in the air suddenly disappeared. Everyone really loves Bella on that island. Kate just felt disgusted. If Ryan hadn't specially turned their thoughts into words and reflected them above everyone's head. She didn't know that these Death Eaters were so chaotic. So, you know how good I am to you. I haven't shown you those more disgusting things. Ryan laughed out when he recalled Kate's expression of being almost nauseated on the high tower a few days ago. You can't say that. At least Traverse doesn't love it. The relationship between Mo Cyber and his son is also very strange. Penelope made a vomiting expression in disgust. I can only say loud, are you British people like this? Fiorin blinked her big sapphire eyes. Hey, Frenchman. What are you talking about? Flem, are you crazy? This is Kate. She had always disliked Fiorin. Fleur, you're such a jerk. Penelope didn't know what to say. That's not me. Ryan shrugged, full of confusion. Also, I remember seeing in Ryan's memories that from his perspective, Voldemort's heartbeat clearly recovered at the moment of the resurrection ceremony. Penelope also looked at Ryan in confusion, trying to get Ryan's answer. Are those Death Eaters really unable to use any magic at all? They must be very powerful. Even I can do this. Fiorin stretched out his slender fingers, and with a buzzing sound, an orange-yellow flame appeared on them. It seems that Fiorin doesn't understand it all. Ryan stroked his forehead. She is different from Penelope and Kate, who rely on their knowledge of magic and the training they receive in mind games. Fiorin relied entirely on the magic potion and the supernatural powers that appeared after refining her blood. She had no idea how great she was now. Voldemort is now the providence of that island space. Although they have no magic and no experience of Muggle life, it was all God's help. They were like taking a felicity drug on that island. Ryan looked at Kate and answered. As for the heartbeat, when you are resurrected, the heartbeat cannot be said to have recovered. It just exists and can be sensed by wizards of my level. Real recovery does take 37 weeks, or 259 days. You are most concerned about, Fleur, the magic power of these Death Eaters was provided to Voldemort's resurrection. The remaining little bit could have been used to perform a little magic with the help of the wand. But, you know, their wands were all broken by accidents. Ryan shrugged. At this very moment, in the empty courtyard of Hogwarts thousands of miles away, a conversation was taking place. Professor Dumbledore, I haven't been back for a long time. Why don't we go to the Gryffindor common room to talk? Arthur Weasley, whose hair was messy as if blown by the wind due to his baldness, he sighed as he stroked the old wall. Professor, time is the most ruthless thing in the world. I almost thought it was still 30 years ago. Weasley's head that he came to his senses. You called me here just to remember about the past. Tell at a glance that he was Severus Snape, the potions professor at Hogwarts. However, he has another identity here. That is the participant in the Death Eater plan to poison him. This was probably why Dumbledore asked them to meet here. Snape and Weasley actually knew this. But they all relaxed in their own way, hoping Dumbledore wouldn't mention it. Of course not. I think you all know it well. Sit down, we have a lot to talk about. Dumbledore snapped his fingers, and 3 comfortable cedar chairs appeared behind them. You should already know what we found in that sea area. Weasley spoke first. This proves one thing, that the disappeared Azkaban still has some contact with the real world. If combined with my poison, then, after a year, we won't have to worry about other Death Eaters except Voldemort. Snape said directly. It's not going to work. You know, that sea area was divided out by Tom and I after investigation. Arthur, I think you would be the most suitable person to receive them. On behalf of the Ministry of Magic. Dumbledore looked at Weasley first. Weasley agreed. Indeed, he was the only senior official in the Ministry of Magic who knew the backgrounds of those officials. As for you, Snape, I think you'll be busy lately. Dumbledore grinned. Just say it straight. Snape snapped unhappily. Castrabush, you should know their connection with Hogwarts and what they are best at. The rules of this competition are different from the past. Dumbledore adjusted his glasses. The previous chapter was blocked and I don't know when it will be released, so I'll just mention it here today to regain the world. This is the prayer of the Death Eaters. The previous chapter talked about the ridiculous things that the Death Eaters did on a deserted island. Chapter 489 Group Potion and Strange Gift. Why not Professor Sprout? Those guys who live in the rainforest all day must also be passionate about herbs. Even I covet the treasures in Professor Sprout's greenhouse. I think those from Castrobus will be very satisfied. Snape raised the question without thinking. But the competition doesn't require herbology. Or it's not based on it. This competition is a new type of event in which all students can participate. So it depends more on what each school is good at overall. If herbology is the main focus, the students from Castrobing who grew up almost with magical plants will have too much of an advantage, Dumbledore explained patiently. So, black magic, alchemy, and herbology are not the main subjects of this competition. Wait, in this competition, the warriors can use potions, right? And these potions are brewed by themselves, or by other students. The mass potions that are about to disappear from the stage of history. Those guys from Castrabush came here for this. Snape narrowed his eyes as the name suggests. A group potion requires multiple wizards to make, and is absolutely impossible for a single wizard to make in ancient times. It was often brewed by shamans and given to leaders to bring victory to the tribe. However, with the development of alchemy, these group potions have been replaced by alternatives that can be made by one person and at most take more time. Obviously, you guessed it right, group potions have been developing in Expelliarmus. After all, they have the largest number of wizards with superb potion skills in the world, Dumbledore said happily. Do those Austrian and German officials have other purposes? So you want to let Arthur come? Plus, he's retired, so he might as well. Dumbledore didn't finish his sentence. Snape then said, why not let Arthur, who looks innocent and simple, receive them? Dumbledore agreed and said, I believe in Gettler, but I think we still need to be wary of his saints. In the newly opened British wizarding world it was Arthur. I believed it would be different. You chose Arthur for Durmstrang. I am Castrobusher, and what about Boxbuttons? Snape asked suddenly. You should know that. Dumbledore smiled mysteriously. What an old riddle man, Hagrid. Or you. Or both. Snape continued, both. Dumbledore stood up and stretched. Harry had no idea how long he had been at the Wheeleyes. He hasn't looked at the calendar in a long time. He didn't even count the time on the Daily Prophet so far as to climb the nearest stoat hill to dig rabbit holes. It's not that Ron didn't want to join and lie one morning, and Harry was buttering Ginny's bread put it to Hedwig's mouth. What is this? Harry noticed a letter on Hedwig's right leg. Poor, pathetic. Why are you so tired, little guy? Ginny touched Hedwig, who was pecking at the mincemeat, and looked up at Harry. Where did this letter come from? Harry directly spread out the letter, and Ginny leaned her head over and rested it on her shoulder. Dear Harry, how have you been spending time at the Wheeleyes lately? There have been many strangers at Hogwarts lately. They are all the presidents and professors of the other 3 colleges in the competition. There's something I want to ask you. Is the book 12 Secrets to Charming Witches that Ron recommended to me really useful? Ginny finally, wish you a happy birthday in advance. I asked Hedwig to bring the gift. You will be surprised your friend Rubius Hagrid. What a hypocrite. Ginny almost sneered. So, Hagrid is finally in love. My Merlin. I need to reply quickly. I'm afraid the contents of the book may have a negative effect. Hagrid finally developed a crush on other witches. We can't let Ron delay this. Harry stood up suddenly then. Ouch. Ginny covered her hit head. Ginny, I was just too anxious. Harry was at a loss, not knowing what to do. This is all that bastard Ron's fault. Ginny grinned. But didn't you notice you still had a gift? Where's the gift? Ginny reminded. I almost forgot. Harry looked around. Could it be that the news about Hagrid's romance is all with Ron? Coo. Hedwig turned her snow-white little head and moved for Harry to look at the ground. Is this a book? Harry guessed based on its appearance. Could it be that damn 12 Secrets to Charming Witches? Ginny covered her forehead with her hands, looking like she had a headache. I know what it is. Damn Ginny, stop it. Harry tore it open in half and saw the beautiful green cover revealing it and knew what it was, but Harry didn't stop it. The book immediately leapt off the table, stood up, and scurried along the legs of the table like some grotesque crab. Gee, what is this? 10 minutes later, Ginny was panting heavily, slumped down on the chair, and looked at the strange book that was opening its pages and showing off its power. Obviously, it's a book. After getting rid of Ginny's interference, the agile Harry snapped the book, which was running rapidly through its cover, under his hand. The sound of hurt shuffling footsteps in the room finally died away. Chapter 490, Hagrid's Love and the Magical Monsters. A Monster Book of Monsters. Is this the textbook for the course Magical Biology? Ginny read, looking at the gold-embossed words on the book. The next second, she looked up and down at Harry, whose hair was barely messy, with a strange look on her face. If you hadn't asked me to help you just now, you would have caught the book a long time ago. Maybe. Voice, didn't Hagrid's letter mention that the principals and professors of the other 3 schools had already arrived at Hogwarts in advance? Which house do you think Hagrid's crush is from? Bugsbuttons in France. Did you and Ron get tricked loudly before? Probably some half-villa, Ginny said sourly. She actually guessed it right. Harry thought so after a minute. Because Ron, who suddenly came downstairs, solved the mystery. He yawned, his eyes brightened by Harry's loud voice, and he rubbed his eyes quickly to clear his mind. Then he said, Ginny, how did you know that? But that's not a half-villa. It said that she's a woman as tall as Hagrid, and seems to be the headmaster of Bugsbuttons. She also has giant blood and can be the headmaster. Ginny blinked in surprise. If there was a professor at Hogwarts who was a half-giant, he would probably be complained by many wizarding parents and fired. Hagrid told you, didn't say that. That's what Wayne told me. Ron shrugged. As for the headmistress, she doesn't seem to have stated her ancestry, just like Hagrid. I have turned to look at Ginny again. After Harry apologized to Hagrid in his heart for a moment, he continued to ask, how did she know? Through Filch. Did Filch accept her? Harry didn't know whether to be happy or sad for Miss Campbell. But everyone's aesthetic is different. This may be good for Miss Campbell herself. She's also at Hogwarts, representing the squibs. She's amazing. Although she was just a squib before, she was able to stay in the wizarding world on her own and found a decent job. Rum exclaimed. Ron sighed as he picked up the patch on the table and began to read it. Hey. Hagrid didn't believe me and actually asked Harry, But Harry didn't understand anything. Ginny was chasing him. Before Harry and Ginny could react, Ron started yelling again, "Harry! It's your birthday soon. This book is actually your birthday present. You won't have to buy this one when we go to Flourish and Blots to buy textbooks." Ron looked at the green book that was pressed under Harry's elbow and was still struggling from time to time. "What day is it today?" Harry looked at Ginny. "Number 29, Ginny answered accurately without even thinking. As a newspaper employee, accuracy in dates is one of her least impressive specialties, so Hagrid gave me the present 2 days early. It seems that he really loves that woman so much that he gave me a gift so early. You know, Hagrid's gifts are always delivered on time on the 31st. Harry exclaimed, but Ron's attention was not on Harry's words. He looked at the green book. Professor Kelborn has never changed textbooks before. Combined with the recent changes at Hogwarts and what Dumbledore said at the end of the school year about all students participating, it can be seen that this book may be the textbook of one of the other 3 schools. Maybe, Ron rolled his eyes. Maybe this book will be useful in the competition, Harry said immediately afterwards. Then the two looked at each other, smiled strangely and opened the book. "Marlin, this is real. Ginny, come and take a look too." Harry held down the monster book of monsters with one hand. "Here, at least XXX or above," Ron said immediately. "Let me take a look. Bird-shaped man-eating monster. Hey, I've seen it on a TV show. It actually exists. This half-bird, half-reptile creature is a distant relative of the bird snake. It can't breathe fire, but it has strong, serrated fangs that can bite through its prey. Nerve of the bird-shaped man-eating monster can be used as a wand collar." Harry pointed to a page and read. "Let me see, Kaba. This is a magical creature from Japan. It shouldn't be tested, but what if that's what the organizers think?" "Harry, don't turn the page yet. Kaba looks a lot like a scaly monkey with webbed hands. There is a hollow on top of its head that is filled with water, and the water inside provides the creature with energy. They will attack unsuspecting people wading through the pond and strangle them to death. But how do we deal with it?" Ron looked left and right but couldn't find it. "It should be at the back." Ginny also joined in and turned a page. "It's very interesting. Listen to it. If you throw a cucumber with your name engraved on it to Kaba, Kaba may not attack you. In addition, if you trick Kaba into bowing, the water in the hole above its head will flow out, and it will lose its power. It's very simple. I think the levitation spell can fix it." Ginny breathed a sigh of relief. "Why don't we look at it by nationality? We may encounter magical creatures from France, Germany, and Brazil. The warriors deal with the dragons, and I guess we'll have to deal with these, and add them to the group score. Let me see, this, a monster, this is so disgusting." Harry showed an expression of disgust but also a little anger. "Are elf-like creatures, larger than goblins, 3 feet tall on average, with long pointed faces, and they particularly like the smell of children. What? How can such a monster live in this world? I think they should all be eliminated." Ron also showed an indignant expression. "This creature lives mainly in the Black Forest in Germany. The cackles of the scorpions are so piercing that they enthrall children. They use this method to lure children away from their guardians and then eat them. In 1927, the German Ministry of Magic implemented strict control over the number of elves." Ginny turned to the next page and breathed a sigh of relief thanks to classmate Annie Mui and classmate Rinzao Chalian 321 for their monthly tickets, and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. Chapter 491 Mission 5 and the Whereabouts of the Horcrux. Harry could never have imagined that, besides dragons, there were so many dangerous magical creatures in the world. They all have special abilities that are beyond the reach of wizards. A basilisk that can kill people with its eyes, a chimera that is so dangerous that only one wizard has ever killed it, a horned water snake with a gem on its head that can grant it the ability to become invisible and fly, manticore, a creature with a human-headed lion body and a manticore tail that has skin that resists almost all known spells, has a high level of language skills, but cannot be classified as a human because of its violent nature, a cat leopard whose eyes have the power of hypnosis and legilimency. In addition, there are magical creatures that are classified as unknown by the current magical world and have no specific danger level classification, Durkurwaga in Fiji, which can change from a human to a shark and back again, Bigfoot, who is mysterious and only knows that he has 2 big feet, a phoenix-like firebird from Japan called the phoenix, Curupira, a jungle elf in Brazil, with long legs, short, red hair, and living in the jungle, Sasabance, a blood-sucking creature with long thin legs that is used as the mascot of the Nigerian Quidditch national team. Children, what are you looking at? Mrs. Weasley walked in from the yard, humming a cheerful tune. Mom, we're rehearsing for Care of Magical Biology, Ron said without turning his head. Ginny, why are you still here? Isn't it time for you to go to Luna's house? I can't wait to see my little darlings writing and talking. Counterpoint. Mrs. Weasley ignored Ron and began to ask the question she really wanted to ask. However, Mrs. Weasley apparently only watched the Quibbler because of Ginny because, Mom, it's the Quibbler. How come you can't even remember the name? Ginny complained and continued, tomorrow is Saturday, the 31st, but it's Harry's birthday. I have to take time off to go to Diagon Alley to buy him a present. Harry, what gift do you want? Ginny winked at Harry. It would lose its mystery if I knew what the gift was. Harry waved his hand to refuse. As if he was afraid that his persuasiveness was not strong enough, he added, as long as it's a gift from Ginny, I like it. Oh, that's so sweet, my little Ginny. Do you need some support from your mother? Mrs. Weasley's eyes were red for some reason. She walked to the dining table, kissed Ginny, and hugged Harry. No, I have money. I get paid for my work at the Quibbler. Ginny said no. Hey. Mom, why are you ignoring me? Besides, I also want to buy a gift for Harry. Don't you support me? Ron said dissatisfiedly. First, I didn't ignore you. I just agreed at you. Secondly, your business with Fred is so popular that even Ginny's overseas relatives who got engaged last time have heard about it. And you still want my support. You're my brother, said Mrs. Weasley, pulling Ron's ear. After lunch, Ron clamored to go to Diagon Alley with Ginny, and finally Mrs. Weasley agreed. Let Percy lead them out the door. Fred and George claimed that they had already prepared a gift for Harry. He went downstairs, tied something, and then ran back to his room, fiddling with something. Bill and Charlie went out early in the morning, and their hands and Mr. Weasley's hands all pointed to work. Putting in a cake shop in London in the Mirror World, and practiced using the cutting charm to carve words on the pudding at the Wheel Eye's house in the Mirror World, in case someone called him at any time and he didn't notice of an eye and it was time to go to bed. It wasn't that someone hadn't called him during this obsessive training. On the contrary, at dusk, Ron and the others returned to the burrow in the dim light. Knocked on his room. What's even more outrageous is that he actually answered it. After talking to Ron and the others for a few words, he went downstairs to eat. These memories are also vivid thoughts that entered the real world and ate and spoke on his behalf. By the time he realized it, he was already in the Mirror World holding up a pudding with 100 Ginny names engraved on it, and taking back those messy memories. Ripples appeared on the mirror, and Harry returned to reality from the ripples was destroyed. Mirror World note, absorb the remaining traces and memories, it will give you guidance to achieve balance. Harry just felt that this mission must be very difficult. Because when the task was refreshed, a chill rushed into his brow, followed by a swollen pain. A message appeared in his mind. It was a message of ritual magic. The spell made Harry feels even more extraordinary fates as yours call out your name in your country. The remaining traces and memories will appear and be recast under your third vision of exploring fate. Those titles made Harry tremble with fear. What kind of being can create stars? Does the opposite world refer to the Mirror World? What does divine authority mean? Is the person with a similar fate referring to me? My fate is similar to that of that great being, mean. Harry couldn't help wondering. And the location where the Horcrux was destroyed. Harry recalled what he knew about Horcruxes made into a Horcrux, but it was still in good condition. It was his final goal, the hope of resurrecting his mother. Ravenclaw's diadem is also a Horcrux. Helena spoke to him privately, and the one in his hand should be remade by Lady Ravenclaw. The one Helena stole was tricked away by Riddle, also known as Voldemort. Judging from the relics of Slytherin and Hufflepuff, it should also be made into a Horcrux. Nothing about them. Chapter 492 Strange Gift. Magic always leaves traces. He had once shaped the extra body with the help of Ryan's necklace. Harry wasn't actually too surprised that he was able to use it again. His thoughts were now focused on how to find the address where the Horcrux was destroyed. There were only two he knew for sure now. But are two enough? If that's not enough, we need to find the remaining Horcruxes, destroy them in the real world and then perform the ceremony in the Mirror World? What if still? Is he going to take action against the current Professor Riddle? Professor Riddle seems to be a good person. Can he really attack a good person in order to resurrect his mother? These thoughts lingered in his mind so much that he casually took off his clothes and shoes, climbed into bed without washing and fell asleep the next morning. The morning sun shone through the window onto his face. Hey what's, nor does it sound like the one that always delivers the daily prophet to me. Thinking of this, Harry opened his eyes. A brown long-eared owl circled in the air excitedly when it saw him woke up, and then landed in front of his bed. Hedwig cried out in a noble manner, as if she was disdainful of the long-eared owl's impatience. Harry put on his glasses and removed the letter from the long-eared owl's right leg. He tactfully pecked at the food and water bowl that Harry had reserved for other owls and then flew away. Instead of always eating Hedwigs like Chuvachong. From Hogwarts. Certain weekends. Please give the permission form to your parent or guardian for signature. Enclosed is a list of books for the new school year. Yours faithfully, Vice Principal Professor McGonagall. Is this the consent form? Sirius should be here today, it's my birthday. Up the stairs. It's Draco. He looked very excited, but somehow he looked like little haggard. Maybe it's because I've been with Pansy for too long? They had discussed it in the letter, and Draco and Pansy were not as restrained as he and Ginny. Pansy seemed to be stuck with Draco all day. Draco is said to be running out of private time. Here, your gift. Package, this. It looks very nice. Harry was a little speechless. Because after opening it, what appeared before him was a silver robe that sparkled in the sun. This is too showy. I had this robe custom made at Madame Malkin's robe shop. It uses the groundbreaking composite material developed by Walker, Draco said with a smile. Harry could only put on the clothes under Draco's eager expression. Hiss. Harry couldn't help but scream. Not bad, right? The best advantage of this material is that it reflects sunlight and feels as cool and moist as water. It makes you feel like you are blowing in the cool breeze under the shade of a tree even under the scorching sun. Draco's voice had just fallen. Ron stood up. My legs are almost numb from squatting. Ron said with a bitter face. He had been hiding behind Draco, but because he was a head taller than Draco, he could only squat. He stamped his feet and held out a boxes. Are you going to change my clothes? Harry looked at the things in the box with a smile. It was a pair of shoes that looked similar to the sneakers in the Muggle world, but were much lighter and had a faint fragrance. I bought this at Tufan clothing store. It also has collaborations with Walker and Skywalker Alchemy Workshop fragrance no matter how long it lasts. Ron looked at the shoes and Harry, wanting to stop talking. Okay, I'll change. So Harry put on the shoes Ron gave him, again. Another figure appeared behind Ron and Draco. My gift. I also think it would be better to deliver it in person. Ginny jumped out and handed over a package. It won't be again. Sure enough. Harry held a pair of navy blue shorts and smiled helplessly. Look carefully, there are gloves and a shirt. These are made from the skin of horned camels and soaked in potions. Its rebounding properties are well preserved. And it's very strong. The salesman said it can be used as a bulletproof vest. Ginny walked forward and said as she touched the clothes. Fortunately, at least this has nothing to do with Water Construction Company and Skywalker Alchemy Workshop. I almost thought they were entering the clothing market as well. Harry breathed a sigh of relief for some unknown reason. Immediately, he looked at the pants in his hands again, and then he discovered the gloves and shirt. They were all the same color, the same material, and so thin that he didn't notice them. Horned camel skin. Its hide is tougher than that of a dragon, and most spells are ineffective against a horned beast. But Harry didn't recall for too long, because Ginny's eyes were filled with the same things as Ron and Draco's just now. Let him put these on. So Harry had no choice but to look behind Ron and the others. Is there anyone else? I need to change my clothes, please come out if you have any. Harry looked again. In order not to disturb everyone's rest, they even used a silencing spell, Ginny emphasized. Ahem. Harry cleared his throat, but, have you forgotten one thing? I have to take off these clothes, Ginny, before I can change into them. I don't know the magic of the fairy godmother in the fairy tale who can put on clothes with one click. Harry shrugged speechlessly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 493, The Humble Dwelling in the Dark. Harry actually doesn't take birthday parties as seriously as he used to. Because ever since he entered the wizarding world, especially after his godfather was vindicated, he had a perfect birthday party at the Black family. So what he was concerned about was the person Draco mentioned, whom he absolutely never expected to come. Secondly, he was touched that Bill stayed up late to prepare a birthday party for him. But while thinking about it, he suddenly realized one thing, that is, Neville's birthday was yesterday, and he and Ron had forgotten it. Also, he never knew when Ryan's birthday was. Neville. July 7th. Ginny's date is August 8th, which is the Wednesday after next. Next is Percy, August 8th, the Sunday after Ginny's birthday. So Harry took out his notebook and began to write down the birthdays of friends who had given him birthday presents. This was something he had never had to consider before. No one had given him birthday presents in the past, and he didn't need to remember them. As the quill in his hand moved across the paper, he realized that he didn't know the birthdays of some people he should know. Like Hagrid, one of his best friends, whose birthday he didn't know. And there's Dumbledore. Although he never gave Harry a birthday present, Harry still wanted to know. As he was thinking about this, he put on a shirt made of horned camel skin. Surprisingly, the shirt, shorts, and gloves are barely noticeable when put on. Putting on the cool wizard robe given by Draco, Harry felt like he was naked in a swimming pool. Combined with the feather-light sneakers Ron gave him, Harry doubted whether they were set. It's just that Ron and his friends split it up and bought it and gave it to him. A minute later, Harry took a deep breath and opened the door of light penetrated the entire house. The heat and light in his room seemed to be swallowed up, as if they had never existed in the first place. The originally cozy and warm house, as if baked by the warm sun, now has a new look. It felt a bit like when Harry attended Nearly Headless Nick's death anniversary dinner last year. Black carpet, black wallpaper, black stair railings of old had left, leaving him alone in this empty, silent house. He finally understood what Ron meant by "I'm sure I'll be shocked." He hasn't even gone down yet, that's it. In this strange house, Harry followed what he thought was the staircase, but it was now pitch black, and put his foot down. Phew. These are really stairs. Ginny. Weasley. Mr. Weasley. Sirius. Okay, Bill. However, no one answered until they got downstairs. Just when Harry couldn't help but wanted to open the door to see if he was outside, bang! The sound of fireworks exploding rang out. Several cold will-o'-the-wisp flames appeared, floating in the living room, followed by Ron and the others. That transformed Harry unaware of everyone's presence. Very good, Harry, you didn't expect it. This was my and Fred's idea. Fred and George popped up. Then Charlie and I will do it. Bill and Charlie waved their hands. I didn't want these kids to do anything wrong. Mrs. Weasley suppressed her joy at the mischief and acted reluctantly. Harry finally understood where the mischievous nature of Fred and the others came from. But Ron's suggestion is outrageous. He even wants us to cast a thermostatic spell on ourselves. We're dealing with Harry, not a lycanthropist or a vampire, said Mr. Weasley. His hair, which seemed to have been blown by a strong wind, was now combed and pressed tightly. He looked a little nervous, as if he had never done anything like this before. Percy, standing next to him, was dressed in the same style, looking like a thick-haired version of Mr. Weasley. But it's all worth it. It was Draco. He looked at Mr. Weasley with reverence, then turned his gaze to Harry. There's another person joining your birthday party today. Sirius also showed up. He looked into the air with a loving gaze, and with a yawn, a tall, thin young man with black hair and skin even paler than Draco's appeared from the spot. Regulus. Won't blame me for ruining your birthday, will you? Sirius said a little nervously. This was the first time his brother wanted to go out, but if it ruined Harry's birthday, he would find a way to trick Regulus back after playing with him for a while. Finally, change these arrangements back, would not. Regulus' first time out was on my birthday. How wonderful! Exclaimed Harry. He saw Sirius's concern, then continued, this is pretty good. At least it's not like the last Death Day dinner, which was not only dark, but also cold. Far away in Hogwarts, Nearly Headless Nick sneezed. I wondered if after I regained my color, I had also begun to regain the ability to catch a cold that I had when I was alive. Hello, Harry, happy birthday. Regulus stammered and stretched out his right hand. Thank you, Regulus. Everyone else's gifts were given to him personally. However, because there were so many people, he did not open them one by one like he did upstairs. He simply thanked them one by one and placed them on the sofa, everyone behind him. This time, for the first time, he felt like the Dudley of old Rio. He is more like a star counting gifts from fans. Not like it is now. Harry thought that he would just have some food and cake. But what he didn't expect was that his cake was also extraordinary. The cake that he thought was in the kitchen was hanging above his head. Chapter 494, Ryan's Journey into the Mirror World. While Harry Potter was having the most outrageous birthday ever, Ryan, who had the same birthday as Harry, also split into two figures, going to Hermione's house in London and Luna's house near the village of Ottery St. Catchpole respectively. They all wanted to celebrate Ryan's birthday with him and give him gifts personally. It is worth mentioning that both of them found ways to get their parents out of the house. So, today Ryan has to be in 3 places at the same time, chatting and having fun with people. What's worse is that there are 3 women in Smith Castle at this time. Among them is Furin, who has full magic attack. If not controlled, just a handshake can make people rush to bliss and enter the sage mode. This terrifying existence. Fortunately, Ryan's physique is extraordinary. And he had other things to occupy Kate, Penelope, and Fleur's attention opposite to those of the outside world. It's like a huge mirror reflecting the other side. At this moment, 4 figures appeared in this place that was familiar yet unfamiliar to them. Is this the mirror world? Kate looked around suspiciously, jumping up and down, and occasionally climbing up a nearby tree to look at everything that was familiar yet strange. In comparison, Penelope was much calmer. She gently pulled her hair back, looked at Ryan and said, "Why isn't there another one of us here? Another us? Can Ryan bear this?" Before Ryan could say anything, Furin leaned on Ryan and drew circles on his chest with his slender white fingers. "It's not like you haven't seen the prayer I gave to Harry, especially you, Penelope. You laughed for a long time. You should still remember the phrase master of the opposite world." Ryan pushed Fleur away and rolled his eyes at Penelope. He secretly calmed his mind to avoid being provoked by Furin and becoming a wolf, although Kate and Penelope both knew that he and Fleur had a relationship that went beyond friendship, but he didn't make it clear after all. However, Ryan couldn't help but take a look at Furin, and kept another us as a backup, thinking of giving it a try someday. So, from a perspective that Kate and the other 2 could not see, accompanied by an invisible ripple, they suddenly became pure. The black aura poured into the mirror surface of the mirror world. 3 figures appeared and then fell into deep sleep. "What were you laughing at? Little devil head. There's something wrong with your eyes." Kate stood at the tip of a branch nearby, seeming as light as a feather. The treetops swayed slightly up and down depending on her mood. She narrowed her eyes, pouted her lips, and looked at Ryan as if he were a bug. She knew at a glance that Ryan had just thought of something evil. Horcruxes, the diary has changed to riddle, our defense against the dark arts professor, the Gaunt family ring, with a resurrection stone inlaid on it. It's still in the Gaunt family's old house. Hufflepuff's gold cup is in Lestrange's vault at Gringotts. It has been destroyed by Riddle. Harry Potter himself. Ravenclaw's diadem was eaten by Jerry. The remaining diadem was given to Harry. Helena and Harry both thought it was remade by Ravenclaw. Slytherin's locket. Harry and the others thought it was destroyed in the Black family's boiler room, but it's actually here. As Ryan's voice fell, a gray film flashed by and passed through the bodies of Ryan and the other 3. The next second they appeared in a strange room. It was filled with densely packed books, like a library, but there seemed to be something wrong with the printing of the books, with the letters all misprinted, P becoming Q. "It is here, Kate, you remember, the Smith study, where Jerry ate the locket." This was also the first Horcrux that Jerry ate. Perhaps because of this, the magic of the locket itself did not survive. All that was left was a locket that had no magic power, like one made by a Muggle craftsman. Ryan smiled and looked at the ground. It was there that the locket was eaten by Jerry after Voldemort's pleading in vain. "Little brat, didn't you tell me in advance before you moved?" Kate said with a puffy face as she stood on the bookshelf. Due to Ryan's sudden movement, she had to squat awkwardly to avoid hitting the ceiling when she moved horizontally from the treetop to the bookshelf. "You could obviously hide in the shadows, and then randomly choose the shadows of any 3 of us as the exit before reappearing," Ryan reminded Kate. Said this, but the next second she flashed to Penelope's side. He looked unconvinced. "So, you want to transfer the traces of your existence here to the boiler room of the Black family, which Harry mistakenly thought was it?" Penelope looked at Ryan. "No, there was no trace of any kind in the first place." The mirror world has only recently expanded to the entire world. The other Horcruxes, the locket, and the tiara were destroyed long ago. As for the soul fragments in the Hufflepuff Gold Cup, they were absorbed by Riddle. There are no remaining traces or memories. Ryan shrugged. Then isn't this mission just a lie? What about Potter Goblin's mission? Kate began to worry about the show Harry Potter and the Resurrection Stone. Task. Those things will increase the power of the evil side of Harry's own evil self that he absorbed before. To achieve balance. Ryan smiled evilly. Balance, what? Do you mean? Penelope asked curiously. Fiorin was not very interested in this. She walked to a bookshelf, picked out a book at random, and looked at the upside-down letters with difficulty. Kate, like Penelope, looked at Ryan, clearly interested. Yin and yang. Light and dark. A perfect combination of virtue and vice. If I were in charge of the resurrection, one end of the magnet can't be too heavy, Ryan said meaningfully. That trace doesn't exist, why are we here? Kate rolled her eyes in annoyance. I mean, it didn't exist in the beginning. The things that belong to Voldemort that I like to stay in the place where they died. Ryan waved his hand. On the carpet, accompanied by a shrill roar, a black shadow escaped from the castle and flew away. Chapter 495, The Wolf Wizard at Hogwarts. Are these the traces and memories left behind by Voldemort? Kate felt speechless. Combined with Ryan's actions just now and the reaction of the black shadow, it was like Ryan slapped Voldemort in the face, and then he screamed and ran away. This is not at all the terrifying power of the Dark Lord that makes children cry. Although the locket and Voldemort's servility before his death had opened her eyes. But she couldn't have imagined that the remnants of Voldemort would reach such a ridiculous level, that Harry Potter wouldn't know from this shadow that it actually died here, right? Fleur suggested a possibility. You forgot one thing. In order for Harry Potter to absorb it, he needs to recite a prayer to me and perform a magical ritual. Left. Ryan stretched out his right index finger and shook it left and right, indicating that it was absolutely impossible. So this is why we came here today? Penelope questioned. Ryan smiled and said, of course not, we still have a lot of places to go today. The next stop is the permanent office of the presidents of the most powerful country in the world, not counting wizards, the White House. On the other side, Harry at the Burrow also ended his day, the weirdest and most strange birthday in his life. When Sirius crouched Regulus back to the Burrow, Mr. and Mrs. Weasley went for a walk in the garden and fed the chickens tea. Use the ask symbol to deliver the gifts. Ron asked in a mysterious manner. You know? Harry turned his head and rolled his eyes in a direction where Ron couldn't see again. I really friend Wayne again. Doubt that Lavender is not your girlfriend, but that Campbell is. Draco was no longer tolerant of Ron, he complained directly. Ron, the hypocrite, is such a bastard, Ginny added sarcastically. Ever since Ron started picking on the relationship between her and Harry, she had never missed an opportunity to hit Ron. Of course, hey. You bloody Malfoy. What did you say? The relationship between Vane and I is pure friendship. She likes that old bastard Filch. Ron raised his fist and waved it at Draco. So you don't deny that Lavender is not your girlfriend. It just so happens that Pansy and Lavender are acquaintances because of our relationship, and we write to each other on daily holidays. How about I let Pansy? Draco deliberately prolonged the last syllable of his words. He kept looking at Ron, as if waiting for him to give in. That's enough. Draco. What can I do to shut you up? Ron rolled his eyes in annoyance. Just speak directly and don't try to be so vague. Draco decided to quit while he was ahead. Although the tone of this bastard Ron was still harsh, he was already giving in. Okay, I'll just say it directly. Like Wayne's wolf transformed wizards, weren't they squibs before? Wolf transformed wizards. In addition to the squibs, there are also some wizards who were originally wolves but cannot go to school because of this identity. Ron could only say this, they go to Hogwarts. Did you guess right? Then why did Miss Campbell say before that they were studying at the Academy of Magical Drama? Harry was puzzled. This is a recent decision made by Dumbledore against all odds, to give a chance to wizards who didn't go to Hogwarts. After all, Hogwarts now has professors from 4 schools gathering together for the Triwizard Tournament, which is just right. Ron said in an almost worshipful tone. How great, Dumbledore. Harry couldn't help but sighed. Ginny agreed. Wait, where do those guys live? Not in our bedroom. Draco said dissatisfiedly. It's summer now, who wants to live in a stuffy castle? Ron replied unhappily, that's not necessarily true. We Slytherins live at the bottom of the Black Lake. It's not warm in the winter, but it's very cool in the summer. Draco's voice became smaller and smaller because of the gazes of others. They all seemed a little annoyed at Draco for picking on them. A few minutes later, when they were about to move to another place to talk, Harry's expression suddenly changed. But there's something very bad. I almost forgot. Harry suddenly sighed again. What's going on? Ron asked in disbelief. Harry has been with him all the time. What bad things might happen that he wouldn't know? No, he had been spending time with Fred and George lately. Maybe it happened during this period. So, Ron's expression changed again. In the next second he narrowed his eyes with a scrutinizing expression. No, don't look at me like that, Ron. I'm sure it's not what you think. Ron's head pushed away angrily as it was about to touch his face. Stay away from my boyfriend. Ginny also hurtfully inserted herself between Ron and Harry. He gave Ron a look of disdain. What is that? Draco asked, trying not to laugh. After watching the show. It's Neville's birthday present. I actually forgot. Foot of my bed this morning. Harry said, covering his face. When is his birthday? Ron asked his roommate's birthday in a matter-of-fact tone. Hey. It's not my fault. Neville's presence in our dormitory wasn't very strong to begin with. He never told me his birthday either, just like Anthony, Terry, Michael, and Ryan. Not everyone likes to receive birthday presents. Every extra gift you receive means you have to remember one more birthday, which means extra expense, Ron said to Ginny, who was showing even more disgust. This is different. Neville gave me a gift, but I didn't give it to him. Harry said, looking down. Wait, didn't he tell you his birthday? No matter how unpopular a person is, even if he is Voldemort, he will tell you his birthday. You have to give him a present on his birthday no matter what. A copper nut would be nice, Ron warned thought, if Neville hadn't told you about his birthday. It's no big deal if you don't return the gift. Ron seemed to feel that his tone was too serious, and continued in a relaxed tone. He mentioned it once, when you didn't even know. When I talked to him alone, he mentioned that he was born a day earlier than me. Harry couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. Chapter 496 The Upcoming Mission 5. Wait, the prophecy. You said that before. Draco was keenly aware that something was wrong. What prophecy? Ron didn't react yet. Or it could be said that although he is not actually stupid, his personality has long been damaged due to long-term neglect, so that he sometimes seems a little slow. The same is true now. Is to be marked. Does Neville have a mark similar to the scar on Harry's head? Ron reacted and quickly denied it. Hey, Ron. Ginny glared at Ron. You know, this scar also represents the sacrifice of his parents to Harry. She and Harry had always avoided talking about it in their relationship, but Ron, I'm fine. Harry stroked Ginny's head touchingly. Then the two Draco, who was standing by, quickly covered Ron's mouth and pulled him away in the garden. Ron, he glanced at his parents who were talking affectionately to each other, then whispered, what are you doing? I still have something to say to Harry. Are you mentally ill? I thought you were not single anymore. Did you see what Harry and Ginny were trying to do just now? Draco glared at Ron unhappily. You mean them? Ron stretched out his index fingers and touched them together, referring to Harry and Ginny. Merlin's beard. Breath. Harry finally came up with a solution. Faced with a plan Harry came up with, others had different opinions. You're lying. In Harry's room, Ron looked disappointed. It wasn't because Harry lied. But it was because after so long, Harry came up with this plan. I think it's great. Ron, have you ever told a lie? Then why do you deny that you put the picture of Aunt Muriel under your pillow yourself? Something like it's Fred and George. They always like to play tricks on me. Ginny ruffled her hair and said in a gruff voice. Harry couldn't help rubbing his eyes. It seemed like there were two Rons in front of him just now. It's just that the Ron in front of him who just spoke had longer hair and more delicate skin. I'm not saying it's not a great idea. It would be a great idea to pretend to have misremembered the date and write it down as a day later than it was earlier, and then give Neville the gift tomorrow. But I just think Harry might come up with a better idea, Ron said quickly. Then he turned to Ginny and said viciously, don't ever talk about Aunt Muriel again. Good. You're already a big kid who doesn't wet the bed, Ginny teased. I didn't wet the bed either. Ron roared. Crunch. The door opened and it was Mrs. Weasley. She put her hands on her hips, looked at Ron and said, "Ron, what are you doing? Be nice to Ginny." "Got it, Mom." Ron's face darkened. Mrs. Weasley scolded Ron and left. Ginny suddenly shrieked, "Oh no! Was Mom dropping at the door just now? Could she have heard something she shouldn't have heard? Could she have heard Harry lie?" Ginny looked horrified. The collapse of Harry's personality seemed to be more serious than the fall of the sky. "Mom heard it, she'd think we taught him bad things." Ron rolled his eyes. "I don't think that's likely. How could Mrs. Weasley be eavesdropping? She must have just been passing by." Fred and George. "She was crazier than both of them when she was at Hogwarts," Ron and Ginny whispered separately. They both twitched their ears towards the door before speaking. "It looks particularly funny. How is this possible?" Harry just found it unbelievable. In the following time, they talked a lot more about Mrs. Weasley. Hooters. "Subsequent payments will be checked by Gringotts and deducted from my account. It's really remarkable." Then, the sky gradually darkened. Draco had wanted to set up a tent and sleep in Harry's room. But under the strong opinion of Ron and Harry, he still moved into the guest room arranged by Mrs. Weasley and others. "This is outrageous. That bastard Malfoy is said to be setting up a tent in the guest room." Ron walked out of the room cursing. Harry was left alone, sitting in an armchair in the center of the room. Search for the trace. Barren land. Phantom humanoid. Harry drew out his wand, and 3 beams of magic light of different colors shot towards the door, the room, and the bed respectively. The function of the first spell is to check whether there is anyone approaching outside and create something like a spider web if someone approaches. The invisible magic thread attached to the outside of the door like a silk thread will suddenly break. The caster will be sensitive to this. The second spell focuses on this room, a variation of the bewitching spell. It's aimed at more than just muggles. Anyone who gets close will think that the place where the spell is cast is a place that should not be approached. It's just like a farmer facing a swept land when he wants to plant crops. The effect of the last spell is as obvious as its spell stop the person coming. The last one would definitely work. As long as the person coming is not Ron, there should be no problem. These 3 spells were found and learned recently in the Hogwarts library in the Mirror World after he stayed in the Mirror World for too long last time. And now, he should be able to complete that strange task 5. Harry took a deep breath, and his whole body was slowly sucked into the mirror on the glass window. Chapter 497, The Impregnable Gate. It was a familiar darkness again. Countless glittering doors in the darkness were calling him. The door he was most familiar with, the one he entered for the first time, slowly approached him. Harry opened his emerald eyes, and a familiar yet unfamiliar room appeared in front of him. This is his bedroom in the Blake house. If you look at the layout of the bedroom upside down, it is no different from when he left. He turned the snake-head-shaped bedroom doorknob and opened the door. Rays of cold light shone on Harry's body, and combined with the silver reflective wizard robe, he now felt as if he was a ghost. And this deep and terrifying room is his house of horror. The mirror world is a reflection of the real world. Harry knows this very well. So, in the real Blake house, it is also lit by candles that emit a cold light. After he left the Black house, even the rooms on the 3rd floor, far away from Regulus' room, were illuminated by the same cold and lonely light as yesterday's birthday. Sirius seemed to be familiar with such lighting for Regulus. Harry couldn't help but think so as he looked at the snake-shaped chandelier and the cool candles in the candelabra on the table next to it. Harry began to walk down the dark stairs, and he felt very familiar with the row of wrinkled heads gathered on the plaque on the wall next to him. He had long been accustomed to these dark wizard elements of the Black family. Harry could see the charm even in the huge umbrella stand made from one of the troll's severed legs. However, the appearance of the giant umbrella also meant that he had reached the 1st floor lobby. It was not far from his destination for the day, the boiler room, which was Creature's bedroom. Narrow stone steps, rough stone walls, deep rooms, dark ceilings and heavy iron pots and pans hanging above in front of the boiler room door, couldn't help but exclaimed. However, as Harry got closer to today's destination, the sticky, slippery and cold magic became more and more obvious. Waves of crying and sobbing sounds came from the crack in the door. Although there was a door between them, when Harry heard the sound, he had a series of hallucinations. It was a clean, messy nest of cloth strips. He saw the thing that made the sound. The thing was shaped like a naked child, curled up in a nest, with red and rough skin, looking like it had been peeled off. Harry swallowed. Even though the thing was small, weak, And injured, he didn't want to go near it. But he still moved forward little by little, and his hand began to slowly reach for the door handle of the boiler room, ready to withdraw at any time. But when his hand was already twisting the doorknob, ready to push it open, he suddenly didn't have the courage to do so, like a coward. Maybe saying the prayer outside the door would help. Such thoughts kept churning in his mind. When he came to his senses, he had already let go of the door handle and knelt in front of the boiler room door with his hands clasped together. And holds the divine power. People with a similar fate to yours are calling your name in your country. Unconsciously, two identical but slightly different voices sounded from Harry's mouth. Both of them started praying at the same time. As the prayer progressed, he felt a grand and vast enveloping him, as comfortable and peaceful as the amniotic fluid in the mother's womb. The hallucinations became more and more obvious. The little monster who was sobbing weakly in the cloth nest suddenly jumped up and let out a series of roars at him behind the door that could only be described as eerie and terrifying. Traces and memories will be revealed and recast under your third vision of exploring fate. Alho. The door lock should be enchanted. But the door remains the same. Open. Harry uttered a brutal spell that would break a door lock but would sometimes leave a smoking hole in the keyhole. The door remained motionless. Open sesame. Harry uttered an even more violent door-opening spell, which would tear the door off its hinges and chop it into firewood pieces. In pieces. Avada is eating a big melon. Harry gasped, looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar door. It's not as dirty as it first appears. But it seems that while removing the dirt, it has also been remade. The whole door is impregnable. Apart from the opening spell for the door, even the last destructive spell he used randomly had no effect on it. Knife. One of his birthday presents because in addition to being a knife, it also has the functions of an ear pick and nail clippers, so Harry always carries it with him. And when he was at the Weasleys' house, Fred and the others also taught him how to open the door using Muggle methods, so Harry inserted the knife through the crack between the door and the wall and cut from top to bottom. Then he pulled the knife out and bumped it again with his shoulder, but the door was still tightly closed like before. Not only that, but when Harry looked down, he saw that the blade had melted. Harry sat down on the ground weakly, looking at the door, which didn't look very solid. The sobbing sound of the little monster behind the door seemed to be mocking him. No, there must be other ways. Harry encouraged himself again. The mirror world is a reflection of the real world. The room he couldn't open was Creature's bedroom. He can't, but that doesn't mean Creature can't. Maybe Sirius could, too. Some new enchantment Sirius had recently cast on the boiler room, a room he used as a storage room for precious items. If all else fails, he can always write to Ryan. With a last glimmer of hope, Harry disappeared on the spot through the smooth mirror surface of an iron basin. Chapter 498. Successfully entering the boiler room. Harry thought this would bother him for a long time. After all, that was a gate that even Avada Kedavra couldn't destroy. Well, the evil side of Creature will probably listen to me, so there shouldn't be any problem. When he was thinking about how to talk to Sirius in a roundabout way to let Creature accompany him to the mirror world, and how to deal with the evil side of Creature, Ginny proposed a possibility. Harry, you can reach any place with a mirror in the mirror world, right? In the heavily guarded room you are going to, is there a flat mirror that can refract light? Ginny said this after telling Ginny about a room that couldn't be opened found in the mirror world, and how he really wanted to go in and take a look. It clearly contains. Harry was about to retort, because he had seen the Black family treasures hidden by Creature in Creature's room before. There are gold and silver products inside that are so shiny that they can reflect one's own light, but the next second he recalled the scene when he had the vision. It seemed that the treasures were no longer in that room. Only after being cleaned by Harry's spell, it now remains in a neat strip, so he just needed to give Creature a present. And among the gifts, which were so numerous that it would take an entire room to store them all, it couldn't be easier to find a mirror. Harry remembered several similar gifts. He just needed to choose one that was consistent with the style of the Black family. Ginny, I'm going to Sirius's house. After thinking about it, Harry suddenly stood up. Harry, do you want to come back and live here? Where are Ron and Draco? Especially Draco, you left him at the Weasleys' house. Sirius, who was boiling a pot of coffee in the kitchen, stood up in surprise and embarrassment. No, I can understand that, I just want to be with Regulus all day long. Sirius smiled carefreely, then looked at Harry curiously. What are you doing back here? I came back to look for Creature, Harry said quickly. Oh, like me and James when we were kids, planning to rely on house elves to go to places we can't go normally. Like Hogwarts in the summer. Sirius looked like he knew a lot. Yeah, it's a secret between me and Draco. Even if I don't explain it, you can't. Harry had no choice but to nod in agreement. Of course, children can have their own secrets, as long as they don't hurt others, well, except for Snotlout. Could it be that this secret won't hurt Snotlout, but will hurt someone else? Sirius looked at Harry seriously. Neither. I'm leaving first. Harry just turned around and was about to walk towards the kitchen storage room when he saw a creature bent down quietly and half knelt in front of Harry. It was unknown how long he had been there. When did you show up, creature? Harry couldn't help laughing. When Master Harry mentioned my name. Creature widened his eyes as big as tennis balls, and the white hair in his bat ears trembled slightly, looking like he was eager to be ordered. Harry doubted that creature would have chopped off his own head and hung it on the wall like his ancestors had. Let's go to your room. By the way, where are the treasures in your room? Harry asked casually as he walked. That's not creatures, baby. They are the precious treasures of the Black family. Because of the great Master Regulus, the prodigal son no longer deliberately destroys the treasures of the Black family. So creature doesn't have to keep the treasure in creature's room for protection. Creature looked at Harry puzzledly, as if doubting why the great Master Harry would ask such a stupid question. I just think your house is too boring. Well, here, this is a mirror. Wouldn't it be nice to wake up every day and look in the mirror? And it's a great decoration, too. Harry pulled out a silver mirror with a snake engraved on it from his pocket. Handed it to creature. Under Harry's expectant gaze, creature took the mirror with tears in his eyes, easily opened the door that he couldn't open in the mirror world, and then hung the mirror on the wall beside him. This is where the photos of the three Bella sisters were originally placed. Creature doesn't know what to say. The great and kind Harry Potter not only saved poor Master Regulus, but also gave humble creature a gift. Creature closed the door and said with emotion after walking out. Nothing. You deserve this. Although you hate Sirius, I have to say that you take good care of him. Harry suppressed his embarrassment and pretended that he really wanted to give a gift. What was even more embarrassing was that he realized one thing. He could have asked creature to temporarily open the door of the boiler room and not close it before he came back. But he only thought of giving a mirror. Creature will look in the mirror every day, no, every hour, as Harry Potter has instructed. 10 minutes later, Harry breathed a sigh of relief after escaping creature's viral gratitude. He told Sirius openly that he had returned to the Wheeleyes. But he didn't. Instead, he was currently in the Blake home's third-floor bedroom. She was walking towards the large floor-to-ceiling mirror in her bedroom with a hopeful look. He fell into the familiar darkness again. After looking around for a few seconds, he finally found the extra door among the several light doors near him. Harry opened his eyes. Damn. He couldn't stand and fell to the ground. Fortunately, creature had laid strips of cloth on the floor of the boiler room. I looked back with my face on the ground and thought with relief. However, the next second, he had no time to think about it anymore. It was a feeling even more intense than when he faced the remnant of Voldemort in his first year. He now seemed to have entered a quagmire, unable to move, and a sticky, gloomy magic filled the room. The monster he had seen in his vision was just inches from his face. The monster looked like it had a layer of red skin that had been peeled off, and he could see it very clearly at this moment. The little monster seemed to be affected by him and couldn't move. I can only cry helplessly. The magic in Harry's body, especially in his forehead, seemed to have made contact with a little monster nearby. His head seemed to be about to explode, but all of this doesn't affect a single thing. That is, like the little monster, his mouth can still move. The creator of thousands of stars. The remaining traces and memories will appear and be recast under your third vision of exploring destiny. Along with the appearance of the last prayer, a magical power like hot magma poured into the room, enveloping him and the little monster. Then there was an intense pain, as if being cut by 1,000 knives. Harry's vision gradually blurred and fell into darkness. Chapter 499 Red Beast Face. Merlin's Beard. Harry couldn't help screaming as he raised his head and opened his eyes after waking up from a deep sleep. The medium through which he entered the boiler room, the mirror he gave to creature, reflected a completely different version of himself. His face seemed to be split into two, with the right side of his face fortunately remaining intact. But the skin on the left side of his face had turned red and scaly, and his left eye had turned an ominous black. You know, The so-called black eyes in this world are all dark brown, but his are different. They are as black as a bottle of thick ink ground from a fine ink stick. When I saw my own face, a host of confusing memories kept flooding into my mind. She was a tall, dark-skinned woman with thick eyelids. She and he were entangled and intimate in the bushes, in the treehouse, and even on the street. Drooping those obscene memories were followed by killings. Green lights of death flash continuously, accompanied by the victim's terrified cries. But what's even more disgusting is that in these memories, he seems to be the protagonist, and he actually developed an inexplicable liking for the black woman. Harry looked towards the corner where the treasures creature had urgently rescued had been placed. Included among them are some silver picture frames for her, Bellatrix Lestrange. It was because the Bella in his memory was completely different from the one in the photo. In my memory, she was already an adult, and when facing him, she didn't have the arrogant look in the photo at all. On the contrary, those beautiful brown eyes were filled with deep love. This Horcrux represents Voldemort's love for Bella. Harry felt like vomiting. What's worse, Harry quickly understood the identity of the square-faced man, even though he had never seen him before. In his memory, in addition to physical pleasure, he also had the thrill of seizing other people's treasures and enjoying them in person. The only one who could make Voldemort feel this way when he enjoyed Bella was Rodolphus Lestrange, Bella's husband. Harry forced himself to clear his mind, stay calm, and then opened his eyes again. On the retina, the task was indeed updated. Task 6, face the remaining memories and digest them. Note, it is not mastery, but digestion. It is not excavation, but acting. You must always be aware that you are just playing a role. When the red face disappears, the mission is also completed. Great! Harry breathed a sigh of relief. This is for the completion of Task 5. It was also because he realized one thing, that the left half of his face seemed to look like this only in his own eyes. Help but smile when he thought of what he said to Creature. He put his hand into the mirror and fell into darkness again. Time passed quickly and Ginny's birthday flashed by. The worst thing about Harry these days was the memories. In his dreams every day, he is Voldemort, and he and Bella are entangled and killing people all over the world. Changed him into a different person. He had tested it in the mirror world, some evil curses, poison spells, and even black magic that he was not good at in the past. He can now do them with ease when he was completely immersed in those memories. He even used the fiery fire curse alone to burn the entire London to ashes. You should know that the fierce fire is one of the most terrifying black magics. It is a magic fire that becomes more and more powerful as it burns. These fires can mimic the forms of some monsters and continuously hunt down almost all objects that can burn, regardless of friend or foe. It cannot be extinguished by water, and water is also a burnable object in his eyes. Only the Phoenix is not afraid of the fierce fire, because as a fire spirit, the Phoenix will not be harmed no matter how high the temperature or flames are. And in his crazy state, he was as unharmed as Phoenix. Those memories seem to be more than just memories, they seem to be power as well. In that state, he might be equivalent to Voldemort. After that, he also discovered one thing, that most of the red scales on the left side of his face had fallen off. The skin from his cheek to his chin has returned to normal. That destruction seemed to be the best play. Harry has summarized these days. The shedding of scales is related to its behavior destroying, and killing the amount of scales that fall off is thus in a progressive relationship. That is, the number of intimacy drops is the least. But this could also be because he and Ginny had never had a deeper communication. As for destruction, Harry can carry it out in the mirror world. But perhaps because it had happened too many times, he seemed to realize in his crazy state that all this was fake. Fewer and fewer scales are falling off. And the final kill, Harry never attempted it once. He just had a hunch that if he actually killed a wizard, the scales on his face would fall completely off. But Harry wasn't prepared to play that last act. Because he remembered what was said in the notes, acting wasn't what really made him Voldemort. Acting, that is, he is not Voldemort himself, but just an actor who interprets the role of Voldemort. If killing is required on the way to resurrecting his mother, he would rather abort the mission. What's more, the number of scales lost due to his intimacy with Ginny, treating her as Bella and himself as Voldemort, did not seem to have decreased. It seemed that his true love for Ginny led to all this. If he goes one step further, maybe, Harry. Outside. Draco also came over and whispered beside Harry. If you want, come home to your room and we can. Ginny held out her index fingers and touched them together. Her face was the same color as her hair. Am I who you think I am? Harry rolled his eyes unhappily. Yes. The three said in unison. They all felt that Harry had become almost a different person during this period of time, never missing any opportunity to be intimate with Ginny. It seemed as if his whole body was glued to her. Chapter 500 Muscle Neville. When a man is being affectionate with your daughter in front of you all day long, what would you do? Mrs. Weasley had a say in that, and of course she gladly accepted it. This is also the most painful point for Harry. I bullied your daughter. Why don't you stop it? And Bill? Are you blind? Most importantly, Ginny was bullying him because when he woke up, there were traces of Ginny touching him, and today, in a public place, Flourish and Blot's fame would have been ruined. Harry, what are you talking about? A thick hand as big as a palm fan patted Harry's back. Hagrid, you? Harry just turned his head and the smile on his face froze. Judging from the palm as big as a palm fan and the fact that he was an acquaintance among the wizards, this must be Hagrid. But what caught his eye was a small round face that was much shorter than Hagrid, Neville. He is a completely different person now compared to last semester. Beneath the pretty little round face is a tall and sturdy body with thick limbs and tangled muscles. It looks extremely inconsistent. He looked like those strange wizards in his dreams, with strong build, handsome features, who called themselves dragons and had magical powers higher than the sky. Are you Neville? Ron muttered as if he had just woken up from a dream. Draco was stunned and couldn't say a word. Ginny hid behind Harry in fear without realizing it, and secretly looked at Neville with one eye. You were shocked, weren't you? I've long been used to it. My grandmother said that I look very manly and am worthy of being the descendant of a hero. Look, today my grandma actually dared to let me come shopping alone. Neville was not angry at all. Instead, he looked proud and puffed out his broad and strong chest. You were like Dudley from Hufflepuff. You were cursed by some strange and vicious curse and then turned it into a blessing in disguise. Ron asked quickly after he came to his senses. He also wanted to have a strong body, but only half of Neville's current body would be enough. Harry, Ginny and Draco all shouted in unison. It doesn't matter. As Ron's roommate, I'm used to his outspokenness. Besides, I haven't thanked you in person yet. Your gifts are very useful. Neville waved his hand nonchalantly, causing an exaggerated whirring sound in the air. Ron couldn't help swallowing. He couldn't help thinking, if Neville's giant palm as big as a palm fan hid him, what would happen to his life? Don't say that. You know, we all remembered your birthday wrong. Harry stepped forward and spoke on behalf of the others. Apart from Harry and Ron, Draco, Ginny and Neville were not very familiar with each other. Ron just spoke without restraint, so this might be more appropriate for him to say. This is all my own problem. I never tell anyone my birthday. I only mentioned it to you, Harry. It's normal for you to remember wrongly. Neville immediately looked at Ron again. Also, I'm not under any curse. This is all the result of my training. Neville proudly showed off his biceps and talked endlessly about how much work it took to build such strong muscles. Ended quickly. Neville is the same now. Neville quickly changed the subject when he didn't get a sincere response from Harry and the others. By the way, have you bought all your textbooks? The textbooks for our Care of Magical Creatures class this year are excellent training tools. Neville held the Monster Book of Monsters in one hand and stopped it from opening and closing with the strength of one hand. It's very interesting, isn't it? Me. If you can help me deal with these little monsters, I can give your friend a free meal. The ragged bookstore manager ran over with tears in his eyes. His body was covered with bruises and purples. It seemed that a lot of people bought a Monster Book of Monsters today. So much so that he looked like this even with thick gloves and a thick cane. I can. As for the free meal, Neville looked at Harry and the others. Ron was about to agree when Ginny pulled his sleeve to show his objection. Harry and Draco naturally said no. No need for a free meal, I'm a student of Hogwarts. Ed his fist lightly, and put his hands together. These slight movements seemed to be earth-shattering. One by one, the green books, like the most ferocious hounds, fell down and drooped on the floor. If there was a night duel in this competition, Neville and Dudley would definitely be invincible. Ron sighed. Ginny cleared her throat. Ron glanced at Harry and suddenly realized, I almost forgot. Harry, you are not ordinary either. If you go up, Ron patted his head regretfully. Harry's appearance was too deceptive. Anyone who saw Harry would not know how much strength was hidden under his thin body. No, I just have better reaction than ordinary people. In terms of strength, I still can't compare to Neville. Harry explained. No, you are too modest. Harry Potter. I have purchased smoke bottles. When facing several bludgers flying towards you and you can't dodge them directly, you can even use your body to knock them away. And that Dudley? I've never seen such a great goalkeeper. This is unbelievable. Foreigner Harry was just about to turn his head to see who was speaking and whether he knew him. K-Rum. Victor Crumb. But from Ron's trembling voice, he knew the information of the visitor. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.